Hey everybody, I'm PJ DeCaesar, and this is my speedrun of the US version of Robotrek in 322.04 by STA timing, and that corresponds with 322.34 by RTA timing. This run, I'm pretty happy about this run. This is the culmination of about a decade of work and pretty constant improvements. I first started running this game in 2009. I think my first run was like 4.5 hours or 4:40 or something. I was really hoping I could find my notes from that early run because it was pretty humorous. It was more or less like I identified the good items and just like built them as soon as possible at all costs and didn't make any considerations for efficiency. And for like the next 7 years, I worked pretty much on my own, developing the route and doing what I could to optimize things. And then when I did the run at RPG Limit Break 2016, I kind of took a break from the game for a while because I knew that to push it further, to really take the next step, I would have to actually dig into like the game mechanics, because this game has a ton of hidden mechanics that really aren't explained or covered anywhere, and some just super weird behavior. And because of the way that the stats work in this game, the amount of flexibility that you have, I knew that I would need to develop some tools to make the routing more efficient, and I wasn't really prepared to do that. So in the off years, my off years rather, like 2016 to 2018, some others stepped up and really put in a lot of work that improved this game, brought the times down. So I need to give a really big shout out to Jin Tatsu, who put in a lot of work on his own, particularly figuring out like exactly what the plot triggers are in this game, which seems like it might be an obvious thing and it seems trivial, but it saves a lot of time. Like he's probably saved me a few minutes just from helping to identify exactly who I need to talk to and where I need to go. And in fact, he pointed out some things while I was at RPG Limit Break a few months ago in 2019. That weren't in this run because I didn't know about them. So he's put in a lot of work, and I need to give an extra big shout out to the Japanese community. Liquid Phase has been like my liaison between that community, and again in those years where I wasn't very active with this game, they grinded this like crazy, using my route as a basis. So I think they brought the time down. I think at the time I had a 337 on the US version, and they brought the Japanese time down to a 319 and some change. I think a low 319. The Japanese version is identical gameplay-wise, but the text is a lot faster, so I think overall, I estimated it's like 7 or 8 minutes faster. My PB and now record on the Japanese version, which is known as Slapstick, is a 3:14:20. Which is about 7.5 minutes faster than this, so that conversion seems to hold true. And I think that run had pretty similar luck and pretty similar execution to this. So yeah, a lot of others really put in a lot of work and gave me some ideas to work off of when I came back to this. And then the next big step that I took was disassembling the battle system, essentially. And I dove into the code and figured out exactly how everything works, and then I rebuilt it in Excel. So I have this calculator that I was able to use to figure out exactly what stat distributions would work, and exactly where I need to change things, and what equipment I can get by with. And that calculator is now available on my website. If you go to the supersnes.tv and navigate through the compendium section, you can find the Robotrek calculator, and you can also find the bestiary, which I dumped from the code, all of the enemy stats, all of their attacks and powers and properties, and there's a whole bunch of information about the battle mechanics and some of the other nuances of this game. And there will be more coming in the future, but as of my recording, those pages are live. And as a result of all of that research, I was able to optimize things even more and bring this route to where it is now. And as a result of that calculator, I was able to skip a pretty lengthy grind in the middle of the game against the shell enemies, these crabs. and that was a pretty heavy source of RNG, and it costs several minutes, somewhere between 5 and 15, depending on your luck. And I end up playing through the game with this route several levels lower than I would otherwise. So, yeah, this took a lot of creativity to make it work, but what you're seeing now is the final result. This is the same route that I showcased in RPG Limit Break this year. Again, at the time of this recording, it was just last month, but yeah, that was RPG Limit Break 2019, if you're interested in watching that run. So, I'm not going to record commentary for my run of the Japanese version. I'm going to try and use just this video and cover as much as I can. Cover briefly, like, some plot stuff, but mostly cover, like, where the route has changed, how the route has developed over the years. Cover a lot of, like, the justifications for things that I'm buying and things that I'm doing in this run, so that if anybody is interested in speedrunning this in the future, they can just watch this and gather all the information that they need. As of right now, I'm pretty content with where this is. This run is far from perfect, as you'll see. This run can certainly be dropped to below 320. You can probably take as many as 10 minutes off of this with better execution and better luck, and you know, optimizing menus and stuff like that, but that's really not where my interests lie with this. I was more interested in the actual routing itself, and I kind of see this run as like a proof of concept more than anything. So I'm certain that this run will be beaten once an interested party comes back to this game. It'll probably end up being Jintatsu before anybody else, but yeah, I'm going to try and cover as much as I can to make things easier for everybody else. That being said, we already missed quite a lot of the run from this overview, so I'm going to do the best I can to explain what we missed. Really just missed, like, the game laying the groundwork for the plot. So we are the son of a famous inventor, Dr. Akihabara. Our family is known for being very inventive. We are innovators. This robot book was passed down from generation to generation. So Dr. Akihabara figured that we are old enough to know how to build robots, and so we build a robot. We go to his house to show it off, and we find out that there are these bad dudes called the hackers that are interested in recruiting Dr. Akihabara, and they try to take us hostage, and we beat them up. As far as the speedrun goes, we collected a few things in Rococo and bought some things in the tool shop. So we picked up 500 golds from our bookshelf and 500 golds that's lying in our neighbor's front lawn. That's some nice luck from those enemies. So we collect that money so we can buy some things from the tool shop. What I buy is 15 stacks of smoke bombs. They let us escape from battle if we want to. And if you use them on the field, they freeze every enemy in place. And that's going to be super important when we reach, like, the mid-game, and you'll see why there. This is an interesting path. So fighting this bird is actually not safe, but the bird gives slightly extra experience, slightly more experience. Birds give 0.2 instead of 0.1 for the mines, and I was getting some pretty bad encounters up to this point. I was just getting single enemies, and I need to reach level 2 at a certain point. Here's another single enemy. So I took that battle with the bird, even though I didn't have 100% hit rate on him. I had pretty close, though. I think I had 95%. So we bought 15 smoke bombs from the tool shop, and we bought 2 repairs. Repairs revive a dead robot. And it takes time to go to the tool shop and stock up on them, so while I'm there, I just buy a few of them. And the 2 extra repairs, in addition to all of the repairs that I'm going to be collecting along the way, are going to be pretty much exactly what I need until I go back and restock halfway through the game. Also, while I'm in the tool shop, I stocked up on, well, I didn't stock up on it, but I collected scrap 2 and scrap 5, which are used for combinations. So, this game doesn't have item shops or weapon shops or equipment shops like standard RPGs do. Instead, since we are inventors, or rather, since our family is full of inventors, we are an inventor, we create the equipment that our robot uses out of scraps and existing equipment. We can't just like go into a shop and say, I want to buy an axe, and then walk away with an axe. You can go into a junk shop or a tool shop and say that you want to buy scraps, and then you can combine the scraps together to make an item for your robot. So Scrap 2 and Scrap 5 are items that are useless on their own but combine into useful things. And they're actually pretty terrible scraps, all things considered, but at the very beginning of the game they're quite useful. So it's pretty handy the way that things pan out. We are going to be turning Scrap 5 into Shield 2 once we reach level 2. So really, as soon as we're able to, we're going to make that. And Scrap 2 is going to be used to upgrade our gun. So other items that we collected were two cures and 2 cleans. The cleans are used to remove rust, which is this game's poison counterpart, from your robots. And rust is actually super debilitating, but with the enemy selection that we choose to fight and with our equipment, we actually don't ever get exposed to it. So that's pretty handy. So instead, what we're going to be using cleans for is combination, cleaning up the scraps and cleaning up other things. Alright, yes, this run starts off pretty rough. Ideally, you want to level up off of that gel, and I think I was at 1.6 total experience, out of 2.0 required to reach level 2. So I needed 2 gels in that encounter, and I got 1. Which is really unfortunate. If I really cared about my time, I would reset. But again, I'm not super interested in optimizing this game fully. I just kind of wanted to get a run that was pretty okay all the way through. And my luck in the mid and late game in this run far outweighs this little mishap. So the reason we want to reach level 2 here is because when you level up, you get 10 additional points that you can put into your robot's stats. But you also get access to the portable R&D machine. So what we collected in this room, just a little bit south across this river, southwest in this room, we collected the rusty drill. And that's actually a key item. So if you combine the rusty drill with a clean, you get the drill. Cleans remove rust. And the drill is needed to drill through these walls. So it just works out really well. You collect the rusty drill, you go fight an enemy, you level up, and then you can immediately clean it and drill through the wall that's directly above you. And also while we're in the portable R&D room, we give our robot a little bit more power, just to guarantee that he's able to kill all of the enemies in the next section. And we clean Scrap 5 to make Shield 2. So it's just a really good level all around. Really convenient breakpoint. Since we just saved the children, we're gonna go and tell the mayor. So the mayor paid Dr. Einst, the super trustworthy looking guy. The mayor paid him to save the children, and instead Dr. Einst just caused a cave-in and then left. So we saved the children, we get paid off, and we realize that not all of the children came home, only the blue-haired kids went home. So Carl is still trapped and we have to go save him. So in this next section, we have access to several more enemies. So in the first few maps, we only fight mushrooms and mines and gels, rushbird. I think that's it. And then the commander at our father's house. So all of those enemies are pretty straightforward because the game doesn't want you to die immediately. But at this point, the game kind of expects you to be building like a balanced robot. So you have some points in speed, some points in guard, some points in power, and a bunch of health. We are not building a balanced robot, and we at no point in this game will we be building a balanced robot. Except I guess in Papa Mecca. I guess we will for one fight. So these enemies are really scary. These ones here, these are spiders. Spiders have a lot of damage, a lot of power, and they have a good amount of speed, so they're difficult to hit, and they're almost guaranteed to hit you. And they're resistant to the run command. So in all of the previous battles, you've seen that my robot just teleports in front of each enemy and slashes them with the sword and everything instantly dies. What I'm using there is a pre-programmed attack, which I've been calling run commands, because the command in the menu is run. So run commands on their own are not terribly good unless you know how to abuse them. So what I'm using here is RXR. That's melee attack, bomb, melee attack. And it drains 100% of your fuel gauge, which is this game's counterpart to an ATB meter. And you attack each enemy in each row once. So at the beginning when I first made my robot, I programmed, I think, four different attacks. I programmed RXR in slots 1 and 2, because we're going to be replacing slot 1 later. And I programmed XRR in slot 4. Okay, that was an interesting decision. Okay, so one of the weaknesses with RXR is... I'll get back to the other things that I made, but this is a good example. Since your robot physically teleports in front of each enemy, if there's a capsule directly in front of an enemy, your robot teleports onto the capsule. And if the capsule is too close, the capsule will explode, and the explosion will damage the enemy instead of your sword swing. And if that happens, then the enemy doesn't die. Instead of taking, 36 or whatever damage I'm doing to them now, they would take like 1 or 2 damage. And then I would have to wait for my entire fuel meter to fill up, and in that entire stretch, they would be attacking me. So, it's a bad situation. I think in that battle I wouldn't have died, but it would have probably been pretty close. The sword commanders are pretty strong at this point in the game. And I think, yeah, my robot still has 0 guard. He has a shield which contributes 8 guard, but that commander would still probably be able to put a hurt on us. So, what I did instead is I spent a turn guarding, because if there's a capsule between you and the enemy will still try to attack and break the capsule for you. So, yeah, that's what I chose to do there. If this happens later in the run, what you'll see me do is just use a smoke bomb to escape, because the enemies, I just can't take the risk. If an enemy decides to move around the capsule, or has an attack that pierces, it would break the capsule and hurt me. Or if the enemy gets 2 turns after breaking the capsule, then I would die. That would be game over. So, generally, if that capsule positioning happens in the future, I'm just going to escape, but in that case, it was safe for me to guard and let the enemy break the capsule for me. This is level 3. This is a level that we want to reach before a Metacrab. We got super, super terrible luck with encounters up to the drill. So I had to fight the extra encounter to reach level 2. But in this cave, we got great luck with encounters. Most of the battles were triple encounters, so it was really efficient experience. So I already have level 3. Further experience here doesn't benefit me in any way. So now I'm free to just dodge as many battles as I want until the boss. And I adjusted my stats, so I did 2 things during that level. I made Shot 2 with Shot 1 and Scrap 2. And Shot 2 has 6 more power than Shot 1, which is really nothing. It's a super minor strength increase, but at this point in the game, 6 points is quite a lot, because I'm aiming to do between 19 and 24 damage to Metacrab. So 6 is a big boost. It saves a lot of turns on Metacrab. And then the other thing I did is adjust my stats. So previously I was doing 12 health, 33 power, which guarantees a 1-hit KO on every enemy here, and 5 speed, which is enough to guarantee that I hit every enemy. But Shield 2 gives us enough speed to still guarantee that I'm able to hit every enemy. So we can remove all of our speed, and I essentially just take my boss build now, which is 12 energy, 36 power, which is enough power to guarantee a 10-round kill on Metacrab, and 12 guard, which guarantees that all of his attacks except for his melee attack are going to do 1 or 2 damage to me. So, that's that. That's level 3. In this cave, in addition to trying to find Carl, we also stumble upon this hacker scheme. They're trying to uncover something called the Tetron. and we don't particularly want them to do that. We also find that guy, Kotetsu. He's going to be a recurring character, so we free him from his shackles in exchange for some information and stuff. Okay, so getting back like 10 minutes ago to what I was talking about with the run commands, I made RXR, 2 copies of it. One of them is going to be used later. In slot 4, I programmed XRR, which teleports you behind a single enemy and slashes them twice. So that is going to be used if I get into an encounter with a capsule blocking an enemy and there's only one enemy. Instead of escaping or instead of waiting for him to break it, I can just use XRR and kill the enemy that way. And then I also made RR, and I put that in slot 5. And I'm going to be using that in the mid-game. What I did here, a real quick mention, if an enemy on the overworld is scrolled off screen, they stop chasing you. So that guy got aggroed, he spotted me and chased after me, but I had to trigger dialogue with that guard, and I didn't want the other enemy to trigger a battle beforehand. So I ran him really far left and then scrolled him off screen so he wouldn't interrupt me while I was talking to the guard. Okay, so this is the first boss in the game. Like I said before, our stat build is designed to guarantee a 10-round kill. This should do 18 to 20 damage. It'll average 19. And after 5 rounds, Metacrab will walk forward and try and melee us, but he's out of range. And as he walks closer, our gun is going to do more damage. All of the ranged attacks in this game decay with distance. So the closer you are to an enemy, the more damage it's going to do. So right now, Metacrab has 200 health. Right now we're hitting for under 20 per hit. But he's going to walk closer, and then we'll be doing like 22 to 24 damage instead. So that'll make up for the damage that we were losing before from being far away. Maybe I'm not going to use a cure here. Let's see. Yeah, I think I should probably take the risk. He'll probably die in one more hit. Okay, yeah, I played it safe. I think he dies in the next hit, but I didn't wanna die. Yep. Would have been safe to attempt. So, yeah, I didn't reset for not reaching level 2 off the enemy that I needed, and I didn't reset for using an extra cure here. So there's still a lot of time to save in this first segment, for anyone who's interested. Okay, so the Metacrab is dead, so the Metacrab build is no longer needed. I'm going to adjust my stats once more. This is going to be the build that I use for the entirety of the old house, which is the next section. So this build, I take 3 energy. I guess before I mention that, I should point out that anytime you're in an R&D room, you can adjust your robot stats. And your pool of stats increases as your main character levels. You start with 40 points at level 1, and every additional level you get 10 more points that you can allocate anywhere. This game lets you adjust your health as one of those stats, though. So that's a really handy thing, because it lets us play through the game at a pretty low level, because we can just take points out of our health and put them into power, or put them into speed. And we can either guarantee that we kill every encounter by just using RXR, or LX, or one of the other really good run commands. And if we have enough power to overcome resistances and we can guarantee that we hit the enemy, then we just win. It doesn't matter how much health we have if nobody ever gets a turn. And then for bosses, we just either pray that they miss us, or we just, do a death abuse strat, which I'll be doing on one of the bosses in this run. Or we just put points into evasion. There are all kinds of ways to get around putting points into health and guard. Because generally speaking, guard and health are inefficient stats in this game. And I get into more on that on my website. So, at this point, we're not a high enough level to actually survive hits from enemies. We just don't have enough points to put into both guard and HP. So, we're going to be playing with pretty low HP from now until the rest of the game, with a few notable exceptions. But the reason I didn't drop my health all the way to 1, the reason I dropped it to 3 instead, is because there is a single screen where I can be forced into a battle against a bird. And birds with 3 HP are pretty much guaranteed to not kill me. I think there's like a really rare circumstance where the bird could get 2 turns and hit for max damage twice and kill us. But 3 is generally safe. And then the rest of the stats, we need 22 speed. So I didn't really mention this before, but as you probably could have guessed, speed is the stat that determines hit rate and dodge rate. So when an attacker is attacking the target, if the attacker's speed is greater, he's guaranteed to hit. Greater to or equal to the target speed, he's guaranteed to hit. If the target is faster, then there's a chance of dodging, and you can just use the calculator or reference my website if you're more curious about that. So at the bare minimum, we need exactly equal speed to all of the enemies that we plan to fight. And in this next area, we plan to fight 2 different types of enemies. And this is one of them right here, this fireball. His name is Monk. He has 30 speed. So if we have 22 points in speed, plus the 8 points that we get from Shield 2, our speed is exactly 30. So 22 is the minimum speed that we can have here. And then 55 power is 55 and now 65 power. It's interesting because it's a pretty convenient breakpoint. So we reached level 6 early, so you're not going to get to see it here. But the reason I'm going to this side now is to get Axe 1. And Axe, for those of you who watched either the RPG Limit Break 2016 run or past runs of this game, you know that Axes are the most powerful weapon class in the game. Axes are ridiculous. And Axes are what I previously used throughout the entire game. You'd get X3, you can get X3 very, very early. Like in the next dungeon, you can upgrade to X3 and just destroy everything. I no longer use Axe 3, but I'm still going to be using Axe 1 just because it's powerful. It's a big improvement over Sword 1, and because you're forced to collect a Scrap 1 after defeating Metacrab, and Scrap 1 upgrades Axe class weapons. So we get a free Axe 2, basically, and that's a pretty big boost. So at level 5 with 55 power and X1, we're guaranteed to kill monks, and we're guaranteed to kill ho-hos, which are the ghosts. Oh, I'm sorry, at level 5 with an X2, we're guaranteed to kill ho-hos. At level 6 with 65 power, X1 is guaranteed to kill ho-hos. So those values are pretty important. Yeah. The minimum damage, so enemies can have resistance to the run command, which I mentioned before when I talked about the spiders. That becomes very common from here until the end of the game, basically. So monks aren't resistant to the run command, which is why they get completely clobbered. They take like 50 or 60 damage or something from RXR. But ho-hos have 50% resistance to the run command. So what would ordinarily pretty handily defeat monks does not defeat ho-hos. So the minimum damage that I'll do is 11 with this setup, and ho-hos have 10 health. So there's not much wiggle room. It's really convenient that it works out that if I take exactly enough points in speed to guarantee a hit against monks and ho-hos, that I also have enough spare points to guarantee that that hit will kill them. It's kind of scary though, because I don't have enough power to kill Plasmokes and Ellismokes, who are the other enemy types in this area. And then in the Clocktower, I absolutely can't kill mummies or Frankens. So once I'm out of this area, once I can't fight ho-hos and monks, I just don't want to get into any battles because I can't win them. So we collect another repair. Repairs are really important. We got lucky in this run in that one of the monks in the grave dropped a repair. They're super valuable items. And the cure I need, well, I don't really need, that's a safety cure. I only truly need 2 cures throughout the entire run. I use one on Metacrab and one on Papa Mecca. But I like to have more just in case I get put in a jam later. So at this point, this is kind of a weird plot section. So after we saved Carl and defeated Metacrab, we find out that our father is missing. So we go to his house to see what's going on, and he left us a note that said he's going on a trip and won't be back for a while. And to remember what he always tells us when we leave his house. In the speedrun, we only talked to him once prior to this, so you need a pretty great memory if you plan to proceed in this game. But playing casually, you'd probably visit him a few times and talk to him before you get to this point. But what he says is that since you're close, you should visit your ancestors' graves. When we inspect the grave, we find that there's this hidden area inside, and that's where we actually meet and talk to our ancestor Rask. He tells us all about the Tetron, and tells us to go visit this old house, visit Count Prinky. So here we are. Actually, is this where he introduces himself? John Paul Belmont Prinky. Count is his name. This guy also looks very, very similar to the vampire in Illusion of Gaia. If it wasn't clear just by the font, this is made by the same team that made the Soul Blazer trilogy and ActRaiser 1 and ActRaiser 2. So, he's giving us a grand tour right now. This is the Clocktower. Tells us that Rask built it. We know that Rask is our ancestor now, so it's all coming together. As far as the speedrun goes, this is actually one of the scarier parts in the run for me. In the whole first section leading up to Metacrab, if we take a bad encounter, if we accidentally get hit, we're not going to die. We'll probably lose a bunch of health, but we can just cure it up. And it's early enough that we can pick up backup cures. In fact, this room has 3 additional cures if I need any. But at this point in the game, the enemies are very strong. The difficulty... It's kind of misleading to call it difficulty, because this game is generally pretty easy, but the enemies scale up pretty rapidly in this game. So, in the previous area, if I were to take a bad encounter and get hit by an enemy, I would take probably 2 damage from the bazooka commanders and maybe 4 to 5 from the sword commander. These monks would probably hit me for like 30. Let me check. Let me see what their power is. Yeah, the Fire Breath has a power of 34. Fireball and Fire Rain, also 34. And at this point, I have only 8 guard. The guard granted from the shield. So yeah, if they attack, it is a guaranteed kill. They would do 26 damage on average. So if I trigger a battle and I get initiative, I'm guaranteed to win. But initiative in this game is pretty weird. So generally, if you and the enemy are in the same row and you run into them, you get to go first. So like right there, the Ho-Ho walked left, but was still technically occupying this row, the center column, and we walked into him, so we were guaranteed to go first. If you're offset by a row and you walk into the enemy, they almost always go first. Really, as long as the game thinks that you're trying to avoid the encounter, it'll let the enemies go first. So if an enemy walks into you and you're not facing them, the enemy goes first, almost always. If you're trying to like shear past an enemy, like you're offset by a row and you try and run past them, the enemy will go first. And then there are like some really weird fringe cases where it seems like you should get initiative, but sometimes the enemies do. And if a single enemy in this entire section gets initiative, I am guaranteed to game over. Well, not necessarily guaranteed. I could block, and Ho-Hos only have like a 95% chance to hit. Monks have a 100% chance to hit, because our speed is equal. But anyways, it's a very scary area. And I'm often very paranoid going through here. I could wait for some of these enemies to walk out of my way. But the reason I'm fighting everything is because I want to be level 7 for the boss. I don't need a whole lot of experience. The experience is linear in this game. So you need 2 experience to reach level 2, and you need 2 additional experience for every level beyond that. So you need 4 experience for level 3, and then 6 experience for 4, and so on. And the enemies here give quite a lot. I think monks give 0.6 each, and ho-hos give 0.7 each, something like that. So it only takes a few encounters to reach the level that we need, and we have several opportunities to reach that level. But until we do, we're going to fight everything, and then try to avoid as much as we can afterwards. It looks like ho-hos give 0.6. Maybe monks give 0.7. Nope, monks and ho-hos both give 0.6. Blast smokes and Ella smokes give 0.7. Okay. So the dude that we talked to in that previous room was Flavin. He was the one that was traveling with our father on that trip that he mentioned in his letter. This is unfortunate. This monk is camping out in front of the door. If we tried to leave that room while the monk was standing one tile to the side, it would be a situation like I mentioned before, where we're like shearing past the enemy. So that would almost certainly have been a game over. I had no option but to wait. So Flavin was injured. He needed his dog. His dog had the medicine in his pack, so we brought his dog back to him. As a sign of thanks, he gave us this flashlight. And the flashlight is the most useless piece of equipment in the game. The only time you're required to use it is in that room to inspect the wall and find out that there's a gap in the wall that you can walk through to hit a switch. From here till the end of the game, we're not required to use light. Although, unfortunately, we are required to recollect light. We lose it at one point and we have to recollect it even if we're not planning on using it. So we're in kind of a haunted house right now, and the hackers are... Alright, well, this game is not meant to be taken seriously. The Japanese title of this game is Slapstick, so, like, they were just kind of having fun with it. There's a lot of goofy moments in this game. The hackers are not real serious bad guys. In fact, in the intro, they show you, like, all the things that the hackers are doing wrong to cause trouble, and the list includes things like loitering, parking illegally, and kicking over sandcastles. Let's see, when we revisited Father's house after defeating Metacrab, 2 hackers come out of his house and the hacker theme song plays, and the hackers get spooked by their own theme song and run away. There are a lot of really cute touches like that I like in this game. So what we had to do there, that sequence, was that hacker that's guarding Mint is scared of the dark, or scared of ghosts or something, just generally scared. So we flip the breaker on and off, and he runs away. This is our first use. Nope. This is our second use. I think we used one in the Forest of Illusion to avoid the bird encounter. But either way, that's one of the first uses of the smoke bomb item. We only have 3 energy, and that build is designed just specifically for that one bird, in case we get into that bird encounter in the Forest of Illusion. If we get into a battle with the commanders in that previous room, it is almost certainly a game over. Again, since we have a shield equipped, we can block, so it's not a sure thing, but it's pretty likely that an encounter would be a game over if the enemy goes first. And the commanders move somewhat erratically, so it can be difficult to dodge them or guarantee that you get initiative if you're forced into battle. So I generally in that room will just try and get the commanders out of the way. This is a real nice encounter here. Yikes. Yeah, some pretty bad decision making here. So I was blocked on 2 different rows by capsules, so I couldn't use RXR, and since it was a triple encounter, I couldn't use XRR to circumvent the capsules. What I should have done is just use the smoke bomb immediately to reset the battle. What I tried to do was get the enemies to clear the capsules, but I noticed when they cleared the top row that the enemies got 2 actions per my 1 guard, and I didn't want to risk when they cleared the bottom capsule that they would get another turn and kill me with it. So, yeah, a bit of indecision. Sometimes it's pretty tricky to know what the best course of action is immediately when you enter a battle. So there are some lapses in judgment here. This battle I didn't have to take because I already reached level 7. And it might confuse you. When I reached level 7, I actually exited out of the portable R&D room. I didn't adjust my stats in any way. I just didn't take the level. And the reason for that is that the the stats right now are guaranteed to hit every enemy that I'm gonna fight, and it's guaranteed to kill every enemy that I hit. So there's really no benefit in taking additional power or additional speed points. And the next time I adjust my stats, I'm going to be adjusting them to the levels that I need for the boss fight. And the boss requires... Well, it doesn't require, but my strats use less speed on the boss. But I wasn't ready to take the speed penalty quite yet. Like, I didn't want to drop my speed from 22 to 16, because if I did get in a battle with a monk, then I wouldn't be able to kill him. I would have to smoke away. So, instead I just wait until this point and adjust my stats now. So I upgraded my X1 to an X2. I'm realizing now, okay. Before, when I mentioned the X1 collection, at level 5 with 55 power, X1 is enough to kill Ho-Hos. And at level 6 with 65 power, Sword 1 is enough to kill Ho-Hos. I think earlier I mistakenly said X1 and X2, respectively, for those levels. Anyways, doesn't matter. So, yeah, we postpone level 7 until we get to this point. If we do end up reaching level 7 earlier, like we did here, then we just delay taking the actual level. We delay adjusting our stats until we go here to make relay. Ordinarily, I expect to reach level 7 on the return trip, so I have to go back that way and fight that monk again. And generally, the second fight will get me level 7. Okay, so there's a bunch going on here. I built my second robot. That's the most important thing. That means that now we are completely safe. If our main robot accidentally takes a bad battle and dies, then backup robot can just revive me, or escape from battle, or whatever. But we're not going to game over anymore. And second robot is not going to be actually fighting for a very, very long time. So we put all of his points into guard, just to make sure that he's going to survive. So if Robot 1 does die in a boss fight, for example, Robot 2 can come in and revive him, and he's guaranteed to survive the attack. We also built X2, because X2 is strong, and we need the extra strength for this next boss fight. We're not going to be using a smoke bomb here, because at this point it doesn't matter, again, if we take a bad encounter, but we're getting pretty bad luck from these enemies. So I could have stayed in there for another 5 minutes and never gotten that bottom enemy to move out of the way. He was just kind of directly next to the door, so I couldn't even run past him. Yeah, sometimes the enemies just don't want to behave and you have to leave the room, reset it, and try again. Again, since I adjusted my stats to the boss stats, we don't have enough speed to guarantee that we kill that monk. So we just run past him. We also don't need the experience because we don't need to level again. We don't benefit from the experience at all in this area, and enemies in the next area give more experience. So we want to just run past them. So Flavin, when we go visit him in that west wing, he tells us that his dog has hidden the Clocktower key, and if only we had a way to talk to the dog, we could figure out where it is. And that gives our character the inspiration to make the relay. Relay lets us talk to animals. So we were able to talk to Parsley. He told us where the key was. We got the key. We left the house. We're going to the Clocktower. That was a really close dodge. Mummy is a guaranteed kill on us. Again, at this point, it's not that big a deal. It's just a huge time loss, and we lose a repair. And repairs are kind of precious right now. This dude here, the Plasmoke, he doesn't really like to move out of the way. So sometimes he can get stuck there for like literally 40 seconds while you wait for him to move. One of the traditions in this game is, or recurring themes, is that Mint is always stuck. Like in every dungeon you go in, Mint is always somewhere either cornered by a mouse or captured by somebody. So generally you have to go find Mint and save her in each of these dungeons. In this dungeon it's doubly true because we actually need the mice to help us afterwards, and the mice won't help us unless we save the little mouse from Mint's purse. So, after doing that and unlocking a door, we are free to continue. This is probably an okay time to start talking about the next boss. So, we are level 7 right now, and the game at this point, judging by the Inventor's Friends books that are around, the game expects you to be level 12. So we're down about 50 stat points from where we should be, and there's not a whole lot of wiggle room at this point as far as equipment goes. Later in the game, we can fight bosses at 10 levels lower than we're expected to, and defeat them handily because of equipment management. But at this point, we don't have access to a whole lot. So this boss is our fate is in this boss's hands, essentially. We take exactly enough speed to guarantee that we can hit her, which also means that she's guaranteed to hit us. The only reason this isn't outright suicide is this boss will make clones of herself, and it's random which clone will attack, and the clones can't change rows. So our goal is that she makes clones very early and then continuously chooses the wrong clone to attack, so we don't actually get attacked. And then the final Hail Mary, if the right clone does attack, is that our shield has a chance of blocking. Has a 25% chance of blocking. But generally, if the right clone does attack, we are going to die. But that's okay. We have budgeted our repairs appropriately. Okay, so you would like to start this fight with a back attack, but... Oh, do I actually get one? I think my positioning's good here. Yeah, really nice. Alright. And she starts with clones, that's really good. Mamorana has 400 health. And that's a hit. One death. So after Mamorana makes the clones, she's guaranteed to be in the center for a few hits afterwards. But I think she might have changed position at this point. I'm not exactly sure what determines which clone is real, and I don't think there's any kind of tell. I think I'm probably gonna stick with the middle one. Wow, nice crit. So that one was the proper clone. Okay, I opted to kill the top one because I didn't have enough distance to hit the middle one. Your boots only allow you to walk. Boots 1 only allow you to walk 4 spaces. Middle one was the clone now, so it swapped with the bottom one. But the reason I killed the top one is because the clones can't change rows. So I was guaranteed to be safe if I killed that top row clone. That's too bad. I think she has like 30 health left, 20 health left. Yeah, Mamorana has 400 health. The first hit was a back attack. And then I got 2 normal hits, and then a crit, and then another hit. Yeah, she had like 10 to 20 health left. I couldn't finish her. This is Confusion. She has... Let me see what percent chance that is. Mamorana, Pollen. 50% chance. Wow. Yeah, Confusion has a 50% chance of hitting, apparently, on that attack. And when Confusion hits, you have no control of your robot. They walk wherever they want to walk, and stop wherever they want to stop. Sometimes they'll attack, and basically just means the enemy gets to slam you for a while. So, yeah, very unfortunate boss fight. We missed the kill by a little bit. We missed the kill by 1 turn, we died an extra time and then got confused with our backup robot. So that was, all things considered, a pretty atrocious fight. About as bad as it can be with a crit and a back attack. But that's how the game goes. Sometimes you get fights that are just incredible, which we'll see later. And other times you just get shown the business like that. Okay, so we have stone number 2. That's the second piece of the Tetron. We don't really know what the Tetron does right now, but we know that it's important. And we don't want the bad guys to get it, so we're collecting it. Everything's happily ever after. Frankie and Igor's Clocktower can keep the right time now, because the Tetron was interfering with things. Mint gets to go home and read an article. Flavin is safe again. Now he can tell us about what actually happened on that trip. And what we find out is that they got approached by this hacker. For some reason, our father, despite also having access to the robot book and telling us to make robots, doesn't actually have any robots of his own. So he's pretty easily overpowered by this guy and gets captured. So one thing that I didn't mention yet is, in addition to combination, in addition to using scraps and using existing equipment to create new equipment, the other means of making equipment is through inventor's friends. Or more accurately, through the Invention machine, which allows us to build things based on Inventor's Friends books that we read. So our character can learn how to make things either by interacting with people as part of plot, or by reading books. So like, when I talked to Flavin, he really wanted to know how to talk with animals. It gave us an idea to make the relay, and then we were able to build the relay in the Invention machine. Similarly, we can read books. So we read Inventor's Friend level 7, that taught us how to make Punch 1. And now, if we have the money, we can create a Punch 1 in any Invention machine, whether it's the portable Invention machine after a level, or whether we just go to an R&D room. And the Inventor's Friends books correspond to your level. So the Inventor's Friends books go all the way up to volume 80. And I think they go every single level up to 30, and then every 10 beyond that. So 1 through 30, and then 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And if you're not a high enough level to read the book, it just says it's too hard to understand. So in Old House, there were a few Inventor's Friends books that are actually really handy. There's volumes 9, 10, 11. I think 8 might also be there. I think 8 is there. But at the very least, 9, 10, and 11 are there, and those are the books for Axe 1, Shield 3, and Power Pack, I think? And X1 and Shield 3 are super good pieces of equipment. And in fact, when I was mentioning earlier that like my super early run of this game was just like finding good pieces of equipment and getting them as soon as I could, that run had like a pretty lengthy grind session in the Old House to reach level 10. So I could learn how to make X1 and Shield 3 in that area. And that's like an enormous power spike. You get so strong so quickly when you have access to those. But it is understandably very, very slow. So yeah, we're not going to be able to read most of the books that we come across just because we're going to be really low level. We're more or less going to be like backtracking to read them after the fact. So yeah, I mean, you could level up to level 7 before you fight Metacrab. You could level up to 7 in the first area and learn how to make Punch and punch Metacrab to death if you really want to. But it's just very inefficient to do that. But anyways, we are beyond level 7 now, so we learned how to make Punch. We're going to make Punch in the Volcano base, the next area here, and we're going to be using that for the rest of the game. It's a very, very good weapon class. So the reason we're here is because Flavin, in addition to telling us that our father was captured, said that he might have seen a Tetron before in his travels, and it might have been in the South Isle. But, I mean, they just happen to be sending out flyers to everybody in Rococo, inviting them to go to the South Isle, and what we find out when we get here is that everybody who's shown up has vanished. They've disappeared. We also have a really weird dream, maybe dream or flashback. I'm still not exactly sure what happens with that scene, but that's where we get introduced to Napoleon. He's going to be our robot friend. Well, our non-combat robot friend. Alright, so after I defeated Mamurana, I adjusted my stats yet again. I think I'm running 1 energy, 93 power, 36 speed. And again, that speed value is just to guarantee that I'm able to kill everything. I'm guaranteed to hit every enemy, and I'm guaranteed to kill everything that I hit. I think the only enemy here... Yeah, the only enemy here that I can't kill with X2 and these stats is Biolion, and also the spiders in the volcano. So every other enemy in this entire area is guaranteed to both be hit and be killed on hit. By RXR using X2. So it's a pretty efficient stat build. Volcano base, we were going to be offered as a sacrifice to the deity. The deity is causing earthquakes in South Isle, and the villagers are scared, so they're offering sacrifices. But I guess I was checking experience there. Yeah, just to see how many extra battles I want to fight. Okay. Yeah, the cause of the earthquakes is actually this factory. There's an earthquake machine in here that's using the fear of the villagers to recruit workers or capture workers. So all the sacrifices are just going straight to the volcano base and being put to work. So we're gonna go put an end to it. The volcano base is a pretty interesting area. It's super interesting from a speedrun perspective because there's a lot of like buffer strats that you can do to get past some of the laser sections. But it's also interesting from a plot perspective because nearly every plot element here revolves around running to the bathroom. So we first go to the bathroom and eavesdrop on some hackers talking about their plans, and they don't want to get in trouble, so they like buy us off by giving us a stamp. And the stamp gives us access to this west wing. And this is where we eavesdrop again and learn a little bit more about their plan. That one hacker was also paying too close attention and gets sentenced to 100 years of toilet cleaning. But we feel bad about that, so we're gonna go talk to him. And naturally that means we have to go back to the bathroom. In this section, it's actually quicker to get captured or get caught by the guards and take it again from the top. These guards, it's kind of supposed to be a stealth section, but there are these weird interactions like this, where if your movement is good enough, you can just run right past the guards. I'm not exactly sure what their line of sight is, and I'm not sure why that works, but that's something that was demonstrated to me by the Japanese runners. But yeah, after going to the West Wing, it's actually slower to navigate, hitting the conveyor switches and whatnot, navigate to the back of the bathroom without getting caught than it is to actually get caught and just do it again from the start. So it turns out that the one guard that was sentenced to toilet cleaning, 100 years of toilet cleaning, was our friend Kotetsu, the guy that we saved from Metacrab's cave at the beginning. So he lets us escape. I'm not sure that I really would have trusted him, because his plan of escape is to take the garbage chute, which goes straight into the volcano somewhere. And you would expect that it just gets dumped straight into the lava, but I guess it's all fine. In this section, so I mentioned before, I can't kill spiders with one hit. I want to avoid them. They still have pretty high run resistance and really good stats. I can't exactly surpass those stats right now. So I don't want to fight them, but I do want to gather some experience because I want to reach level 11 before the next boss fight. I have a while before the next boss, but these enemies give disproportionately high experience. Gators give 1 experience each, 1.0, and boss toads give 1.4 experience. But it's kind of risky. So the way that enemies work, or the way that enemy formations work in this game, is the sprite that you see in the overworld dictates the first enemy in the formation. That is unfortunate. Am I gonna go for this? Okay. Wow, that was pretty ballsy. Gators are pretty fast enemies. It looks like they give 1.1 experience too. Is that right? 1.1? Yeah, wow, that's even better than I thought. Yeah, so the enemy that's showing on the overworld is just the first enemy in the formation. And enemies 2 and 3 are actually dependent on the formation itself. And there's no way to actually know what the enemy formation is unless you use like Ram Watch or something. But each overworld sprite corresponds to the same formation every time. So if you make a note of like the spawns of each of these enemies on the map, you kind of know what to expect from their encounter, and you can take good ones. So the boss frogs that I chose to fight there were ones that were either triple boss frog formations, which is the maximum encounter formation you can get in this area, or boss toad gator gator, or boss toad commander commander, which are lower experience, but I'm also guaranteed to win. There is a boss toad quickbird formation. That's in the... That's going to be impossible for me to mention it with words, but that's one that I absolutely don't want, because quickbirds take action very frequently, and they do a lot of damage and have a ton of speed. So I wouldn't be able to hit them. If I did hit them, I don't think it would kill them, and they're guaranteed to kill me. So we make it back to town. We go talk to the elder. A little bit more on that in a bit. This is actually a really strange optimization that I wasn't expecting. So once this message box disappears, once the key message box disappears, Dr. Einst is already standing in front of Mint and ready to talk. I actually triggered the cutscene while that item fanfare was playing. So that screen is super weird, because after you collect the key you can stand completely still and the cutscene won't trigger, but only when you press certain directions on the D-pad will your movement be interrupted and the cutscene will start. That was really good movement through that screen. But it turns out that it's not actually tied to your character's movement at all. It's tied to the D-pad inputs. So when the item get fanfare is playing, when I'm collecting that key, I'm pressing left and right on the D-pad, and that's triggering the cutscene. So Dr. Einst actually walks into the room while the fanfare is being played, and then it just waits on his dialogue until it's able to draw dialogue. And if you don't do it that way, the cutscene has to play afterwards, and it ends up taking like an extra 5 or 6 seconds. And there are just like a bunch of really weird interactions like that in this game that I've like accidentally stumbled upon. Okay, that buffering there, the magnifying glass searching in place, that's a buffer strat that was, again, shared with me by the Japanese runners. Previously, I used to just like run right through and then dodge the enemies that come out. So the reason we stall there is because there are these invisible laser beams, these sensors, and if you cross them, then an alarm is tripped and enemies will chase after you. But the timer is the timer for the lasers starts when the screen loads. So if your movement is consistent, and if your buffering is consistent, you can dodge them without ever seeing them. It's a really clever idea. So, right, this whole section, we make it back to the village. The deity says that we are the chosen ones because we made it back from being sacrificed, and he sends us in there again to investigate. This time he sends Mint, who's a pretty girl, to be the deity's sacrifice, and to be taken to the deity's special chambers. And that's when we find out that the deity is actually Dr. Einst, the villain from the Metacrab arc of this storyline. So we follow Dr. Einst We follow him through the executive toilet, and he just vanishes there. We can't track him anymore. We go to the kitchen. Kotetsu is disguised there again. It's another buffer strat to hopefully dodge those dudes, but we didn't. Oh, because I only did... Yeah, right. Okay, so I only did one search there. The actual buffer strat is 4 searches. It looks like I just forgot. Again, there's a 1 search buffer that you can do here, but the bio line cut me off, so we're going to be triggering this. And then hoping that we can just run past. Wow, really good. Right, so we find Kotetsu in the kitchen. He says that you can get chameleon goggles. Those will let you see the invisible barriers and invisible enemies and sensors and stuff. They make the chameleon goggles in the R&D room, which we don't have access to, but thankfully the head chef at the kitchen needs help delivering an order. So we're delivering an order to the R&D room and picking up stuff along the way. The important thing that we got there is the Scrap 4. That upgrades punch class weapons. And we're using smoke bombs here just to make sure that in this room we don't get stuck on that staircase by that bio line, because that is again one of 2 enemies that we cannot kill right now. And in other rooms just to make sure that we get through without getting into a big mess. So this is going to be the big crafting section of the run. We're going to be recycling all of our previous weapons because we're not going to be using them anymore, and we need the money. And then we're going to first make the plot item, because I have a tendency with this game to build my weapon first and then just leave, and not notice until much later that I don't actually have the plot item that I need. So, build the chameleon goggles first, and then build punches. Okay, so crafting in this game. Every weapon has, I would say, a tier and a level. So punch 1 is tier 1. Punch 1 can be upgraded to punch 2, it would be the 2nd tier, and then punch 3, which would be the 3rd tier. Punch 1, punch 2, and punch 3 all have a separate level, which increases their power. For some other weapons, the level gives you different effects, like Blade 4, from levels 1 through 6, only hits a single row, but in levels 7 through 9 hits all 3 rows. Some of the other weapons have like special graphical updates, some of the bombs do, Sword 4 does. But for melee weapons, it just increases the power. So the reason we're making 9 punches, our robot obviously can't equip 9 of them, but we're going to be using 8 of them to upgrade the level of our punch 3. So there are a whole bunch of rules and formulas for how the level upgrading works, but really at its most base level, if you're combining 2 similar weapons and they're both... Yeah, if you're combining 2 similar weapons of different tiers, the result is going to be the higher tiered weapon and an increase of level based on the level of your components. So I'm combining a punch 3, which is the highest tier, with a punch 1. They're both, well, the lower one, punch 1, is only level 1, so it's just going to increment the level of my punch 3 by 1 for every combination. So I make 9 punch 1s. I combine punch 1 with scrap 4 twice. I get 1 scrap 4 in the minecart section in the first cave when we first meet Kotetsu, and I get the other scrap 4 in this section here, the one that I pointed out just a few minutes ago. And then the other 8 punch 1s get combined to increase the level. Punch 3 level 9 is... I don't even think it's the strongest, or second strongest weapon. But the reason why I really value punch 3 is that it has the highest critical hit rate. And critical hits have some very valuable properties for us. Mostly it ignores resistances. So I'm going to be relying on critical hits for all of the boss fights from now until the end of the game. So previously I used X3, in previous iterations of this run, that is, I used X3, because that has the highest raw damage. I think at level 9 X3 has 120 power, and at level 9 Punch 3 has like 78 power. I can check really quick. 76 power for Punch 3. So it's substantially weaker, but it has 4 times the critical hit rate. So Axe 3 has a critical hit rate of 1/16, and Punch 3 has a critical hit rate of 1/4, 1 in 4. In theory. And after making Punch 3, there is one more adjustment that we need to make, and that's where we adjust the run commands once more. You can hear the siren has sounded now. I walked past the alarm, but in this area, there's real unfortunate enemies. Alright, we did get the buffer properly that time, too. Yeah, in that one screen where I tripped the siren, the enemies only come out of the far door, so on the return trip it doesn't actually matter if we sound the alarm, because the enemies will never be able to catch us. This red tint is the chameleon goggles. And you'll see in the next few rooms, you can actually see the trip lasers and a hidden door as well. Right, so the adjustment I made to my run command is I swapped the first RXR with RRR, which is just 3 uses of your right-hand weapon, which is Punch 3. The reason for this is that we're not going to be fighting a whole lot of encounters. Well, okay, that's not entirely accurate. The encounters that we fight are not going to be dealt with my melee weapon anymore. We're about to get a much more efficient weapon. So I'm going to be using RRR exclusively for boss fights from now until the end of the game, I think. Are there any bosses where I don't use that? No, I think I use it for every single boss now. So I want that in the first slot just so I can like mash the A button and get through my menus a little bit quicker instead of having to go to like slot 5 or slot 2 to choose it. So it's faster to just reprogram my commands and put RRR in the first slot than to have to select it in the menu every turn. You might have noticed I'm a mouse now. So the chameleon goggles allowed us to see the entrance to the secret lab, and we went in there and read Dr. Einstein's diary. That's where he explained the plot that I mentioned earlier, and he didn't really like that, so he turned me into a mouse. And it turns out that's what he's been doing to everybody who's asking too many questions. And some of the head engineers, too, they turn into mice. That's their punishment. So now, as a mouse, life actually isn't too bad. We can go do mice things. We can go in mouse holes and explore. We can talk to other mice. We can get chased by cats. And people say nice things about us when we talk to them. So Kotetsu is particularly interested in our ability to use mouse holes. And he also suspects that there's something going on. He's always in the know. He's got the inside scoop, and he knows that people have been getting turned into mice. So he knows that we understand English, we can understand what he's saying, and he wants to bargain with us. So he'll return us back to human form if we go and steal some loot for him. I don't remember what this loot is supposed to be. I don't know if this is the R&D budget or just like a secret stash, but there's a room that has some guards outside that you can't kill. Or rather, if you could initiate battle, you would be able to kill them, but they don't fight you, they just tell you to get lost. We can go into that room with the mouse hole, though, and we can take the stuff that's inside, so that's what we gotta do now. The mice don't want to let us through, though, so we have to go and fight this dude. It's mouse cleaning time in the cafeteria. He's gonna try and teach us a lesson. It's a really, really unfortunate capsule spawns. I think that's our 5th encounter that got blocked by a capsule. Fortunately, we were able to use the enemies again to just break the capsule for us. We didn't have to escape. And we used RXR to kill him. One of my common mistakes there is to still choose slot 1 for the run commands, forgetting that I reprogrammed it to RRR. And I just stand in place punching and then die. It's a pretty bad feeling. But we destroyed that dude that was cleaning the mice. super, super bad enemy movements. There's nothing I could do. I wonder if I'm going to get forced into another encounter here. That guy was walking down, so we might be on the middle row now. Yeah, alright. It's fortunate. Yeah, mice cleaning is gone now, so all the mice can go eat whatever they want in the cafeteria. And now we can go through and steal the loot. So there's an interesting exploit that you can do here that isn't... I mean, not only is it pretty widely known, but even the developers have accounted for it. So, unlike a lot of other RPGs where you get like a sack of cash or a gold bar or something when you do one of these quests, and it just like shows up as a key item that represents a bunch of money. Like in Earthbound, you get the... You know, I don't even remember if you get like $1 million or if you get a diamond in Earthbound, but either way, you certainly can't spend it. In this game, that's not true. The 5,000 gold is actually 5,000 gold that's added to your total. And if you had access to the Invention machine, you could certainly spend it. The game gets around this by not letting mice use the Invention machine in an R&D room. So if we went back to the R&D room, took that path that we took before, past all the biolions, we walk in and we try and use it, the game won't let us because mice are too short, and we can't reach the control panel. But if you level up, you can still use the portable Invention machine. So I toyed around with the idea of trying to plan my experience so that I reach level 11 after getting the 5,000 gold, and then using that to build a whole bunch of stuff. And with the previous route, there kind of was a justification for that, because the previous route was pretty expensive. But with this route, we really don't need much money. Like, all of the money that we need is pretty readily available just from like a few capsules scattered here and there. We only build a few items in the entire run. So, while I could technically do it, it would end up being slower to do it that way. If you go back to Kotetsu, though, after having spent his money, he just says, "Huh, is that it? That's all that was there? Alright, whatever." And then it continues normally. Right, so we brought him his money, he honored his end of the deal, turned us back into a human. After the mouse cleaning guard was destroyed, I talked to one extra mouse there, and it's like one of the only sequence breaks that you can actually do in this game. After you're turned back into a human, Kotetsu tells you that, you know, the head engineers are turned into mice as well, and you can go talk to them and they'll give you the scoop on what's going on here. And one of them will tell you that he was turned into a mouse because he accidentally pressed the self-destruct button, and gives you the combination for that. Though it's kind of strange that he tells you that he accidentally used the self-destruct button, but the base wasn't destroyed. But whatever, it doesn't matter. We blow up the whole base and we get out of there. So along with 5,000 gold in that room, we also collected 2 of the best items in the game. Well, this is really perfect timing for level 11. So we collected Scrap 9 and we collected Sword 4. Sword 4 is this weapon here. In Slapstick, in the Japanese version, it's called Thunder Sword, for reasons that are probably pretty obvious. Sword 4 is essentially a free use of RXR on every ordinary melee swing. So if you use RRR, you get 3 strikes of lightning on every enemy in each row. It is ridiculously powerful. The only kind of balance that there is with Sword 4 is that it's an elemental weapon, and there are a lot of enemies that have resistance to elemental weapons. Specifically, 2 have resistance to Sword 4, and Blade 4, which is the strongest weapon in the game, and Bomb 2 and Bomb 3, which are also multi-hit weapons. So, yeah, there are a bunch of enemies that have resistance to it, but that really doesn't matter, because we can get around those resistances pretty easily, which you'll see in the next section. But in this section, nobody has elemental resist, so all of these enemies are going to die in a single attack, and that's that. So we reached level 11, and the reason that's important is because we want to have maximum power and 40 speed. Yeah, this next boss fight is... it's pretty peculiar, and these strats are not going to make a whole lot of sense. So I want to briefly touch upon what's going on here, and then we'll talk about the boss. Yeah, we saved all the villagers and whatnot, and, you know, exposed the racket of the deity. And the Elder is going to give me their most precious treasure, which is in this shrine. We're going to make one detour before the boss, and go and collect 2 hidden items. A hidden 1,000 gold, and a hidden hammer 2. And hammer 2 is important, not because it's a good weapon, but because it recycles for 3,000 gold. So, it's just super efficient gold collection. And then with our current power and current sword, we're guaranteed to kill these gels with a normal attack, a normal swing, back attack. And you can get back attacks with this sword by just turning around. Alright, so anyways, I'm unequipping Shield 2 off my main robot and replacing it with Sword 4, which I'm not going to use in this battle. And the reason I'm unequipping it is because I don't want a chance to block. Shield 2, all shields in this game, in addition to some other pieces of equipment, give you a chance to block, which is a 25% chance of ignoring all damage on that turn. I'm actually going to be using a Death Abuse strat here. So I swapped the order of my robots, so the defense robot is going to start the battle, and then I'm going to take advantage of the way that this boss's AI works. So this boss will always use 2 lasers and then fly across the screen. So we're going to let our first robot take the 2 lasers, and then swap in our attacking robot. And on the swap, Big Eye is going to fly across the screen, and we get a free turn. And we get a free chance at a triple attack, back attack. So then he kills us, and the cycle repeats. So he's going to fire 2 lasers. During that turn, we're going to use a repair. And then again, his next action is going to be to fly across the screen, so we're going to swap in a single ampersand here. He's going to fly across, and we get another free hit on him. And this ends up being substantially more efficient than my old strat of trying to actually survive his hits. At this point, you can never guarantee 100% dodge rate. I think the best dodge rate that you can have against Big Eye is like 55%. You know what? I can figure it out. I can figure it out while I'm talking. Level 11, if we do 99 power, 40 speed. Bomb 1 still, if we made boots 5. Big Eye would have a 53% chance to hit, or when you factor in block rate, it would be 40% chance. That fight you expect to take 3 or 4 hits from you to win. This fight was well above average because I got a super early crit. I got a double attack, back attack crit. And did 580 out of his 600 health in 1 turn. So, if you're trying to do an evasion build, your best chance is a 40% chance, or a 60% chance to dodge. You expect the battle to take 3 or 4 hits. You're probably going to die 2 times throughout that battle anyways. And when you die that way, it's just adding more and more time. The Death Abuse strat actually takes the same number of turns. It's just that your off turns have longer animations, because you have to swap in the robot instead of just defending. So, it's a strat that's super counterintuitive, but actually extremely effective. And the reason that fight was even better is because, like I said, I got a crit on the first turn. So Big Eye is the only boss in the game that's actually capable of blocking. There are a bunch of other scattered random encounters that can block, but none of the bosses except for Big Eye can block. And Big Eye also has run resistance, I think? Let me double check this. I think he has 50%. Yeah, 50% run resistance. So when you use a triple attack, not only is the damage reduced by 50%, but he's also able to block any of those individual punches. So if all 3 punches connect and you critically hit, you win the battle in the first turn. But, as we saw in my second hit that only did 45 damage, if he blocks 2 of those punches and you don't crit, you do basically nothing. And that really sucks. So that fight can be really long or really quick, depending on what kind of luck you get with Big Eye blocking you and whether or not you critically hit. And I don't remember if I actually finished explaining critical hits before when I started. Oh, this is the frog I mentioned before with rush birds, quick birds, that is. Quick birds don't have elemental resistance, and we now have enough points and speed to guarantee a hit against them. But earlier on the first pass, we absolutely do not want to fight that formation for that reason. Yeah, so critical hits ignore the resistances of enemies. So if an enemy is normally resistant to the run command, but we get a critical hit, there's no longer that 50% damage reduction. And that's why there's such a huge disparity between the 45 damage and the 580 damage that I did. And that disparity is going to be even more obvious when we get to later fights. But yeah, critical hits are the truth in this game. They're absolutely the most efficient way to deal damage. If you're paying super close attention, in those previous 2 rooms, on our first pass through that cave, there weren't any enemies. And in this pass, there are 2 enemies in each room. Those enemies are special. Those are maskers and berets. There are 3 different types of maskers and 3 different types of berets, and they're like super boss tier. Well, not quite, but their damage certainly is. So the most experience you can get from an enemy in this area is 1.4 from a boss frog. Berets and maskers both give 2.5, I think. At the very least, I know that berets do. 2.5... 2.6 for the maskers. So they give a ton of experience. They're resistant to the run command and elemental damage. They have a huge amount of guard, 100 guard and 120 guard for those 2 enemies. So they're very difficult to kill and do a ton of damage. And they're invisible. But the chameleon goggles also reveal invisible enemies. So just to make sure that I don't get into a battle with them, I like to keep the chameleon goggles equipped. It's worth it. And that's going to be true later on too. Almost every time that those enemies are in a room, I'm going to equip the goggles and make sure that I don't fight them. Because if you're running blindly through a room, the odds are pretty high that if you touch an enemy, they're going to get initiative. And their attack animations are very long. They're almost guaranteed to kill you. And you would lose a repair, you'd lose time from the battle. It's just bad. It's always worth using the goggles. Right, so I think after defeating Big Eye, I think the treasure there was Napoleon, that robot. I think that's the thing that they were protecting and wanted to offer to me. Napoleon destroyed himself into pieces by helping us escape, and we took the pieces with us. That is Scrap A. Despite what the name of the item and the sprite would seem to indicate, Scrap A cannot actually be combined with anything else. It's just a plot item. I was very disappointed as a kid when I learned this. Another fun thing, I showed it off during the RPG Limit Break run, but if you talk to police officers with the mouse, I think they say something like, oh hey, the cute mouse, but even mice have to obey the law, or even mice get in trouble if you break the law. The police are serious business in this place. Right, so we have Scrap A from Napoleon. We go back to the town, talk to the Elder. He's really happy. And tells us that Dr. Einst escaped. We collected a key item there called Change, and Change lets us turn into a mouse at will now. That's how we escaped from prison there. Change is a super interesting item because instead of just having like that one dungeon where you're a mouse, mouse is now going to be a pretty prevalent mechanic throughout the rest of the game. And it makes these dungeons pretty interesting to navigate. So the sewers are a dungeon that it's probably pretty familiar to those of you that saw either the 2016 RPG Limit Break run or the old route where we grinded off of the shells. As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to be doing that anymore. This route, thanks to the calculator and the things that I've found, this route is able to just completely ignore that level grind and play through the game under-leveled. So instead, we're going to be doing our best to dodge encounters. Well, that's not entirely true. We want to get one more level. We want to be level 15 for Papa Mecca. So we're going to be taking the high-value encounters. Some of these octopus encounters are really good, and we want to avoid the other ones that we can't get experience out of. So we're going to try to avoid all of the shells. We're going to try to avoid the luck stars. Sometimes the shells are not interested in being avoided. Yeah, this guy just kind of wanders around and wastes our time. This was the encounter that we grinded on before, so there's a bit of a throwback there. But the sewers are particularly rough. There are a lot of enemies here, and they're particularly narrow corridors, so it's really hard to avoid encounters if they actually get aggroed and start chasing you. And for the first half, it doesn't really matter because we need to gather experience anyways. But it starts to be a pain once we've already gotten level 15, where we've gotten enough experience and we just keep getting forced into encounters. There's a bit of an exploit that I'm doing here with these fish, or rather with that bottom fish. When a text box is up, you can't actually be forced into a battle. So when I collected that key, there was a fish standing right next to me, and I could have advanced the dialogue, and I would have been forced into a battle with them. But I don't want to fight that fish. So instead, I just leave the text box up and let it linger until the fish has moved to a tile that is no longer a threat. So I use that there, and I use it in some other dungeons later, if the situation calls for it. I don't know if I get forced into those situations in this run or not. This run, at the time of recording, was completed like 2 months ago, and I haven't rewatched it since I got this. So I remember a lot of the boss fights, but a lot of the dungeons I don't remember. Like, I don't remember getting such atrocious encounter luck at the beginning of this run. It's been interesting to rewatch. I don't remember these formations. So when we force a battle with the octopus... Oh, that is a triple octopus, so I do want to fight that one. We want to fight the triple octopus formations. So just like I mentioned in the Volcano base, with formations being kind of misleading based on the map sprite, like, all of these octopuses are showing octopus, but some of these encounters are octopus commander, some of them are octopus shell, some are triple octopus. And shells we can't kill, commanders are kind of okay experience. I think some of the octopuses are bundled with luck stars, which we can't kill. So I have to be kind of careful with which octopuses I choose to fight. There's one, the very bottom left octopus in this room is an octopus shell formation. So I absolutely do not want to fight that one, but sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes he just walks in front of you. Yeah, so I'm waiting for him here. Okay, he steps to the side and I can run past. That's a pretty inefficient battle to take. Commanders give, I think, 1.1 experience, which isn't a huge amount of experience, but it's a really quick fight because they die in just one swing. So what I'm doing in some of these fights, this is a really good example here. I'm going to be using RR, which is 2 swings. And the reason for this is because, like I alluded to before, some of these enemies are resistant to elemental now. Certainly those anglers are. So if I were to just use the basic sword swing, if I were to just use R once, then they would take like 12 damage and just kill me the next turn. But the run command actually overrides weaknesses and resistances with its own properties. So if an enemy is resistant to elemental but not resistant to the run command, you can use the run command with an elemental weapon to do normal damage. It's pretty interesting. And there's something that I didn't consider until Jintatsu mentioned it at RPG Limit Break. But for anybody who's looking to improve this run and is using this for notes, you can use RXR with Sword 4, and you still teleport and use it like a melee weapon. Like, you'll teleport in front of each enemy and just slap them with the Thunder Sword instead of using the Thunderbolts themselves. And that ends up being more efficient than using RR, because it's a pretty long animation waiting for 6 Thunder Strikes. So, if you're looking to pick up some time, RXR works on them. And you can also, later on when you use RR to kill some of the what I call the rubber commanders, the ones in the air fortress, instead of using RR with Sword 4 there, you can swap and equip a bomb and use RXR on them as well, and it's a quicker animation. And if you're going to be fighting a lot of them like I do in Air Fortress in this run, I think you save like 2 seconds using RXR over RR. The risk, of course, is that you might end up getting into an encounter that has capsules that block you, but you can always just use RR anyways. You would only lose time from that. You wouldn't lose time from having to exit battle. So, something to consider, and something that I myself did not consider until Jintatsu mentioned it. So in this entire section, we were arrested for stealing the mayor's jewels. So the 3 Tetron that we gathered were taken away from us, and that obviously doesn't seem like something that the mayor would do. So we go to investigate and find out that the real mayor is actually locked up in one of these rooms, and he's been replaced with a fake. So we're gonna go and try and expose this plot. What I'm doing here, this battle is actually not forced. The previous battle on this, the mayor's house, was forced, but this one just opens up a shortcut. So if you defeat the other guard first, you can go and fight this one, and he'll try and get revenge, and then this doorway is opened up. Because we do have to backtrack to go save the mayor later. And if you don't defeat that guard, then you have to go back through the mouse holes, and that's a little bit slow. Right, so it's obviously pretty urgent that we expose this plot, but when we go confront the fake mayor, he's gonna fight us, and we're not ready for that fight yet. So we have to go stock up on some things. The reason level 15 was important is because we're gonna go read Inventor's Friend level 15, which is Shield Pack. And Shield Pack gives us a chance to block, gives us, I think, 16 guard, nope, 10 guard, and 16 evasion. It is a wildly efficient item, especially when you're low on levels. It's 2.5 levels worth of points. And since we don't need bomb for anything, since we're now using Sword 4 to kill all enemies, as a reminder, if you unequip bomb, you can't use RXR anymore, because bomb corresponds to the X in that command. But we have Sword 4 to kill all encounters, so we can now replace our bomb with Shield Pack. We're also getting Boots 4. This is a new item to the route. This was actually... I was pretty excited to put this back in the route, because it was one that I used back in like 2009 in the early route, just because I really liked it. And I still really like it. So I'm glad I was able to find a use for it. Boots 4 gives you the maximum move speed and maximum move range, so we can now cover 8 tiles instead of just 4, and we move quicker. And we equipped these on our backup robot. So Papa Mecca is a super dangerous battle, because one of his attacks has a 50% critical hit chance, and critical hits, in addition to ignoring resistances, critical hits ignore speed. So regardless of our evasion, even if we were guaranteed to dodge every single attack, which is true if you have over 100 speed more than the attacker, even if that was true, a critical hit would still hit us. And that means that we need enough defense and enough HP to survive the crit, or we just hope that that 50% chance doesn't happen to us. So we're using our second robot because he's already building guard in order to survive reviving the attacking robot. And then we just put enough speed so that he's guaranteed to hit, and power and energy, the power and energy values are a slightly longer justification, but there's a reason for it. You'll just have to trust me. And Papa Mecca, I believe, has 7/8 resistance to the run command. No, he has 75% resistance to the run command. So we're just going to be farming for critical hits. A back attack crit will kill him. And otherwise we'll be doing single digits of damage to him. So this is pretty much just a critical hit contest. 28. So these attacks are fine. The bombs are okay. Those just do some amount of damage. The Gatling gun is the attack that can crit. There it is, okay. 572. So you can see the impact that resistance ignoring has. We did 28 damage with a critical hit. Or, sorry, we did 28 damage with a punch 3 RRR that didn't crit. And then we hit him for 572 or so with a crit. Double ampersand is never going to see battle again, so we're going to take all of his power and speed and put it into energy. He's now just going to be the revival bot. He's just going to hang out, and if ampersand dies, we're going to revive him. I think this run also gets a drop here. Yeah, nice. So in this route, that money actually does not matter. It saves... I think it saves 2 seconds to get that, because we're not going to be spending it until the very last section in the game, and there's a 3,000 gold capsule that is literally on a tile that we walk past. So the only thing that saves is... No, actually it doesn't save any time. I take it back, because we would be skipping the 3,000 golds collection dialogue there, but we have to get the 3,500 gold dialogue here. Nope, I take it back again. It actually costs time to get that drop because we have to wait for that capsule to flicker and disappear before we can collect the key. It's not a big deal. I guess it would cost 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds, however long that animation takes. But yeah, while previously that drop was something that's very important and we would be happy to see it, now it simply does not matter at all, and in fact is not something we want. Papa Mecca is one of 2 bosses that can actually drop something. Papa Mecca and Blackmore are both able to drop a capsule afterwards, and the 3,500 gold drop is actually the common drop. The rare drop is 1,000 golds, that's a 1 in 16 chance, and the super rare drop, which is 1 in 256, is 7,500 gold. Anyways, that's that. I'm not sure, so that drop happens so infrequently that I'm not sure if I was actually prepared in this run to make route adjustments. So I might just collect that money anyways. I'm actually really curious to see what I'm going to do when the time comes. I think what I did is make shield 3, since I have the extra money now. I think. We'll see. Okay, well anyways, the plot is exposed, the fake mayor has been destroyed. We took his money and released the real mayor. The real mayor said that he hid one of the stones in a place that they'll never find, and he gave that to us as a reward. But immediately upon collecting it, Rose takes it, and we're told that Rose is the one behind all of this. She's the evil mastermind and the leader of the hackers. It's kind of interesting in this game, like the hacker leader... Oh no, she doesn't declare herself the hacker leader here, she's just a bad person. But the hacker leader changes hands a number of times throughout the run. I think the first declared hacker leader is Blackmore, and then after that it's Rose, and then after that it's Gatto. They just keep using the same plot twists. Yeah, so everything was fixed in town, and we hear that these little kids are teasing this talking crab, who's our good friend Meta Crab. We don't want him to tease him. So we go save him by trading our surprise horn. And then he lets us know that we can go to Snowy Mountain. I like this guy a lot. I made my living by crabbing. Wouldn't be fair to refuse a crab's request. He's a very honorable fisherman. So we're gonna go to the Snow Mountain, which is I don't know if this is where he tells us there's a hacker base, or if he tells us this is where our father is. I really didn't pay attention. I haven't paid attention to the plot of this game in like 4 years or so I'm mostly winging it. If you're looking for perfect accuracy, perfect recollection, you're gonna have to look elsewhere. One important note: this is my my standard bathroom break time. So you can see me standing on this boat here. That's because I have not yet returned. I think I lose 7 seconds in this run. It varies. Sometimes I don't lose any time. Sometimes I lose only a few. This was a particularly notable time loss. This is a really unfortunate battle that I did not intend to get into. So at this point in the previous route, we would be level 20. We would have fought 5 or 6 extra crabs in the sewers, and killing Papa Mecca would take us to level 20. And at level 20 we can build Vanish, and Vanish is what we use to avoid all encounters for the rest of the game. Vanish is a consumable item that you can kind of trick into not being consumed, and while it's active, no enemies can initiate battle. They can still prevent you from, like, there's still collision detection, but you don't get into a battle when you touch an enemy sprite. But we don't have Vanish now because we're not high enough level. That's kind of the whole point of this reroute. We wanted to skip that grind. This is really, really unfortunate. I forgot that this happens, actually. So this dude up here is not actually an enemy. He's just a security robot. He sounds the alarm when he sees you, and that causes enemies to flood out of the gates. He still is a sprite that occupies space, though, so you can't run through him, and he just happened to block me right at the bottleneck there and continuously sound the alarm, which locks his position even further. Nothing you can do about it. I stood far away from him so that he wouldn't... There's nothing you can do. Oh man, the luck in this run. All over the place. Keeping it interesting. Yeah, he moves completely sporadically, and I did the best I could, but he spotted me. At least those guys behaved. So yeah, from now, I would say this area and then the next 2 dungeons are dungeons that I'm going to be without Vanish. And I normally have Vanish. So I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get enemies to move out of my way. And if they don't move out of the way like they did there, to try and figure out what to do. So after I built Boots 4 and Shield Pack right before Papa Mecca, you might have noticed that I went to the tool shop and I restocked on repairs and smoke bombs. I think I buy 5 and 5. 5 bombs and 5 repairs. I might have bought more smoke bombs in this run because I had to spend more, because I got some particularly bad encounters. But yeah, the reason I get more smoke bombs is because I now have to play through these maps without Vanish, and you can get really jammed in a lot of these places. And even if you're not just put in a bad situation, you still have to use smoke bombs in some rooms just to get through efficiently. And this is one of the rooms. I go through this room 3 times and I use a smoke bomb every single time. Yep. Yeah, you have no room to navigate, and those enemies can, they can corner you pretty easily. If I remember right, a battle that you clear on the very first turn is still like between 12 and 15 seconds, depending on the means that you use to kill them all. Against these enemies, since I have to kill them with RR, since they're resistant to elemental, or rather in this run, since I kill them with RR, but like I mentioned before, you can use RXR with Sword 4 against them. Anyways, since I have to use a longer animation attack, I think these battles are 15 seconds each. So the time that it takes to buy the extra repair, or the extra smoke bombs when you're in the tool shop, and the time it takes to equip it and use it, is still about 10 seconds faster than trying to just wing it and getting into an encounter. But there are a lot of sacrifices in this game that, like, you can take a bunch of risks, and if all of them pay off, if all of your risks are successful except for one, you'll break even with playing it safe all the way through. But if you take a bunch of risks and, like, you have one bad room with 2 extra encounters, then you're losing 15 more seconds over just playing it safe. And like I've mentioned a few times now, I was not particularly interested in trying to fully optimize this game as much as just get, like, a really solid proof of concept video out there for others to work on later. So this is perhaps my least favorite section in the game. This has so much backtracking, and the Snowy Mountain dungeon itself, maybe not dungeon, but the Snowy Mountain base is just awful to try and navigate, because it has only the worst enemies and very, very narrow corridors. So even when you have Vanish, it's kind of a pain, because you don't really want to, like, equip Vanish. You don't want to have to menu twice to equip Vanish to get through a single room. And in this case, it also sucks because you have to try and bait the enemies to run away from you and then smoke bomb that last room. And you have to take the boat 3 times in this section, so there's a whole bunch of downtime, and in the sections that aren't downtime, it just sucks to play. But it has to be done. So the dude that we meet in the Snowy Mountain is Carl's dad. Oh, we are gonna make one more trip here. Although this is not normally when I do it. No. Okay. Alright, so like I mentioned before, I used a lot of smoke bombs earlier in the run, and I wasn't actually keeping track of my shopping trip after Papa Mecca, or before Papa Mecca, so I didn't know how many smoke bombs I bought, but while I was doing this run, I apparently recognized that I used a lot more than I wanted, and was going to run out in the next section, which is something you definitely do not want. So I just ate the time loss and bought a few more smoke bombs, which is honestly a pretty fair adaptation. I am kind of remembering now that I think in this run, I think this is the one that I used all of my smoke bombs up. We'll have to see. But yeah, the dude here that we meet is Carl's dad. And after he heard that, you know, we saved Carl and we know him, he has us deliver a letter. Carl doesn't have any paper to write back, so Carl instead inscribes his letter in this lithograph, which happens to be our ancestor Rask's blueprints for an engine. So the lithograph gives Carl's dad the wow, that was close! Gives Carl's dad the inspiration to make the engine for this blimp, which is the thing that he's here designing. Once again, we smoke bomb through this room because this room sucks. And away we go. So even though this entire stretch is kind of awful, it does have my favorite NPC in the game, which is the snowman hacker. He was the dude that was outside here. He made that snowman to the left. For every visit here, there are 3 visits. There's the visit to Carl's dad, the visit leaving Carl's dad, and then this return visit after getting the lithograph. There are more and more snowmen. So at first it's just that one, and then when you leave the first time, there are 2 more. When you leave, or when you come back for the 3rd visit, there's a 4th snowman there. So this is the air fortress, and this is it's a pretty cool dungeon, honestly, but it's pretty infuriating to do without Vanish. and I'm kind of the only one right now that has been running without the crab grinds. So I had to do a lot of legwork with trying to figure out how to get these enemies to move out of my way. When you have Vanish, you just, you equip Vanish and you run for 5 rooms, and you get to the next plot element, and then you equip Vanish and you run for a few more rooms, and you repeat that until this place is done. Without Vanish, it's really scary. So most of this dungeon is like these 3-tile wide corridors with, again, these dudes that I call rubber commanders. It just looks like they're wearing like a rubber green suit, and they resist thunder, so it makes sense. But those dudes don't. So when you trigger them, when they get aggroed, they don't really react predictably, and their most common reaction if you trigger them when they're in the center is to get startled and plane shift by 1 row and then run at you. So your options when you enter a room are to like basically stand completely still, and if they spot you, they'll generally run to one of the sides and then run at you. Or if you're not spotted, they'll run to one of the sides and then you just run around them. But sometimes when they're in the center and they get startled, they run straight at you right down the middle, and you can't dodge them. You have to take the battle. And that really sucks. And it sucks for a few reasons. First is that it's time-consuming. And second is that at this point we don't actually want extra experience. I think I cut it close enough in Snowy Mountain and the sewers that we're pretty okay. We probably have like a 15 experience buffer. But we want to reach level 18 after collecting scrap 9. Like this dude just runs right up the middle. It's too bad. We want to reach level 18 after collecting scrap 9, which is pretty late in this dungeon. Because we want to use that scrap 9. We want to... It's the same concept as the level up for level 2 at the very beginning of the game, where we want to use the portable Invention machine to make the drill. We want to use the portable Invention machine in that case to make Shield 5 later. I'm not really sure why I'm turning around for those. So Sword 4, I elaborate more on back attacks on my website if you're curious, but the short form here is that Sword 4 can get back attacks as long as you're facing the same direction as enemies. So if an enemy's facing to the right and you're facing to the right and you use Sword 4, you're going to get the back attack boosted damage, which is a 25% boost. Do I actually make it past them? Nice! Wow, good. It's really hard to make it past those 2 guys if you trigger the alarm. Yeah, anyways, if you use RR with Sword 4 against those guys, it's guaranteed to kill them regardless of back attack boost. But I think when I did this run, I had also recently tested a different route, and with that route, you would level up Sword 4, and with a leveled up Sword 4, you can kill them with a single sword swing back attack. So I think I was just kind of startled because I wasn't expecting a battle there, and then second guessed myself. Doesn't really matter, it's just, again, like, a little mental block. So a few things happened here. We met our dad, he doesn't remember who we are, and then we met him again. And, or no, we met Blackmore and Rose. No, yeah, Akihabara was in that cutscene too. Basically, they want him to make a laser, but it's not coming along real well, so they're gonna just lock him up or something. And then we meet Dr. G here, who has invented the Cyberjack, which is a way to enter a computer. We were the mouse test for him, but now he's lost. He's stuck inside the computer, and we have to go find him and save him, because he has a key that we need. In the room where we met Blackmore, who was the Pumpkinhead guy, and met our dad and Rose again, we collected a key, which we've already used, and we read the book for Shield 3. Shield 3 is an on-the-fly route deviation that I made in the middle of this run. Shield 3 is used for one battle. It's used against the Bug fight coming up next. And I'm not entirely sure whether it's worth it or not to get it. I normally don't get it because you'd have to collect extra gold along the way, and the only gold that's along the way here is guarded by a commander, so you would have to use an extra smoke bomb. So it's time consuming, and you use a smoke bomb to get this piece of equipment that you use for one fight. But since we got the 3,500 gold capsule from Papa Mecca, I had the spare money to actually make it, so I decided to go for it. The reason why it's interchangeable is because with Shield 2 against Bug, he only has an 11% hit rate, and with Shield 3 he has a 6% hit rate. And the Bug fight can end in 2 turns if you get a critical hit. And if you don't get a critical hit, it ends in 5 turns. So, with mediocre luck, you're still expecting to kill him before he kills you if you have Shield 2. The increase in evasion rate is really not that substantial. 89% chance to dodge versus 94% chance. Not a real impactful difference. It's really nice to make it through there without a fight. It's good. But yeah, anyways, I opted for Shield 3 here just because I had the money. A lot of these rooms, like if an enemy... The enemies randomly walk around the rooms until they spot you, and after they spot you, then they... they're total jerks. After they spot you, you can sometimes predict where they'll move, depending on what enemy it is. But in a lot of these rooms, there are enemies that are like really close to the door. So if you walk into a room and the enemy instantly spots you, then you're usually unable to avoid battle. Okay, this is where we fight Bug. He's inside the computer. It's also kind of a minor sequence break here because you're supposed to find out that your father lost his memory and then you go fight Bug. But once you have the key, you can just go fight Bug first. It doesn't really matter. So Bug has 2 attacks. He has an electric attack, which is okay. And then he has like this thing that I always see as a hockey puck, which we don't really want. We don't want in this fight or his refight. In this fight, it can induce stop, which prevents us from using the run command. First turn crit is excellent. There's stop, so we can't move and we can't use the run command. So we just have to sit here. We have to guard and wait. The next back attack will kill him. I think a front attack, RRR does 120. Looks like one of those attacks refreshed stop. It normally only lasts for 2 turns. Oh, 208, okay. Yep, okay, so he died in 2 turns, or 2 hits, but it was like a 5-turn fight because of stop. Stop is a 25% chance on that attack, so it was pretty unlucky. But we didn't die. If the fight pans out like that, where Bug gets like 6 attacks to my 2, that's when Shield 3 is kind of justified. You know, if he dies in 2 hits, it doesn't really matter if your dodge rate is 89% versus 94%, because he's not going to get that many chances to hit you. But if he keeps negating your turns, then that shield becomes more and more valuable. But either way, I made the decision and that it maybe paid off, but it is what it is. It's something that you can swap out though if you're looking to run this game. You can pick up like 12 seconds, I think. I think crafting an item costs 7 seconds, and reading the book is probably another 2. After defeating Bug, I checked to see how much experience I have, just so I know how many battles I can fight. Again, I want to reach level 18 after collecting Scrap 9, but before fighting the next boss. So, I do want to fight some enemies along the way, and that's like kind of a consolation prize for having super terrible encounter luck in this dungeon. Because you do have to fight some number of encounters to reach level 18. So it doesn't really matter if you fight them early or if you fight them late. So I get into like 3 additional encounters that were forced. So I'm just going to try and dodge a few extra encounters later. But the total number of encounters for this dungeon is probably going to be about the same. And I think the encounters that I fought were pretty good. I think there were all 2 or 3 enemies each. So there's a lot of time that you can save and lose just from random encounters in this game. Not only like the number of random encounters that you get into, but also the number of enemies that are in each random encounter when you are looking for levels. Because if you get single enemies in every encounter, you're forced to take 3 times as many. So Bug is destroyed. The guard lets us go see our dad because he feels bad. And our dad, now remembering who we are, and remembering what he did, wants to put an end to it. I grabbed that 5,000 gold here just because it's like a 3-second detour, and it enables us to buy a whole bunch of repairs later on, which are going to be really important. Invisible Room, these are enemies that would completely destroy us. If you're going to look up these enemies in the bestiary, those are called berets, B-E-R-E-T, and they're the ones that are in the power loaders, the ones that smash the ground and use the earthquake attack. I guess on that note, I mentioned at the beginning of this video, but in case you missed it or in case you forgot, I do have a full bestiary on my website, as well as a pretty detailed overview on the battle mechanics and the battle calculations. And I also link to the calculator itself, if you want to use that to figure out numbers on your own for a challenge playthrough or casual playthrough or speedrun. Whatever use you have for it, even if you just want to fool around and punch numbers in, it's there for you to use. And I'll be linking to it in the description as well. And in the future, I plan to add more information about equipment and enemy formations and drops and stuff like that, but I haven't gotten around to it quite yet. So we did collect scrap 9 now, and the switch that we hit in the other room drained the water, so we can go through the waterway now. That'll take us to the boss. But after having collected scrap 9, we are now willing to fight battles and level up. I still generally don't want to fight commanders because they're not my highest experience option. Pumpies are kind of okay, but we really just want to avoid as many encounters as we can until the end. And then at the end, if we still are not level 18, then we'll fight an enemy called Faceman. It's my favorite enemy name in the game. This is really unfortunate because the guy kind of jammed us in the corner. He walked up to the 3rd row from the top and then picked a side, so we didn't really have much room to try and dodge around him. Okay, I got scared in that room because I normally want to hold left. That manipulates both of those enemies to walk up on that line, instead of one of them just like taking the center and walking right into me. It ended up working out okay anyways that first visit, but I panicked. My manipulation failed, so I wanted to retry. These enemies are not giving me good patterns. Having to do a lot of fancy footwork here. Let's see how the pumpy room goes. Yeah, I didn't even bother. Pumpies are really tough to avoid. When they spot you, they kind of chase you, but then sometimes make random right-hand turns. So they're pretty tough to avoid once they see you. And sometimes I just opt to fight them, get it out of the way. Again, like if you invest 3 seconds or 4 seconds into trying to dodge an enemy and then you get into a battle anyways, or like get into a battle and they get initiative, then you can be down like 25 seconds, as opposed to just being down 15 seconds for taking the fight. So sometimes you just have to make a judgment call. These 2 encounters are unavoidable unless you have Vanish. This one in this narrow corridor, and then this 2-tile corridor. Cannot avoid them. So with this route, even though we're saving like 10 10 to 15 minutes from skipping the crab grind in the sewer, we're slowly giving it back. So in this area, I think you're guaranteed like 8 extra encounters, something like that. So you're giving back 2 minutes here, and then in the next dungeon, I think we're forced into 5 encounters. So you give back another minute and some change, minute 20. This is the last room before the boss. We are still not level 18, so we're gonna fight Faceman. Best enemy name in the game. Facemen give 2 experience each, and they die to sword 4, which is wonderful. And there are 4 encounters with them in this area, so I'm guaranteed to be level 18 if I'm not yet. And the reason for all this is to make Shield 5. So I haven't talked about shields yet, and now is a pretty good time to do so. Shields have hidden resistances that I did not know about until I dug into the code. Shield 5 does not, though. Shield 5's special property is that it just has really good stats. It gives you 32 guard and 32 speed, which I think is tied with Boots 5 for the single highest speed boost in the game. It's just an insanely valuable piece of equipment. So with maximum speed stat, Shield Pack, and Shield 5, Blackmore has very, very little chance to hit me. Let's see, actually. I think it's like 8%. It's 12%. 12% chance to hit. So we're sitting pretty. This attack can crit. That's the most dangerous attack that he has. All of his other attacks have 12% chance to hit. And we are able to block. The reason I value this setup over what I was using previously, in previous runs, is this. I'm able to get back attacks on him. So after you hit him, if you're next to him, he's going to use the ram attack. That's going to push you at the wall, and then he's going to advance. And when he does this, he's positioned in such a way that we're able to sneak around the back and hit him with a back attack. And a back attack crit with, that's really unfortunate. Longest animation attack, and it hit. A back attack crit with punch 3 does, like, 850 damage to him or something. And he only has 1300 health. So, I think a front attack crit is also like 650 damage, something like that. I think this run didn't get any crits on him, though. I think this run had a really bad Black Tank and a really bad Mamurana, which is the second boss. But with this setup, it's not unlikely to kill him in 4 hits. I think this is hit number 5. Oh, one other fun property that I didn't mention about blocking. I just mentioned it's a 25% chance, but that chance is based on the global frame counter and not actually the random number generator, like all of the other hit rate and critical hit rate stuff is. Okay, that actually wasn't a bad fight. No crits and 1 death, but not too bad. I've definitely had worse. So blocking is on a 32 frame cycle. So there are 24 frames that will not block, and then the next 8 frames, the next 8 consecutive frames will block, and then it repeats. So if you're fighting an enemy whose attack animation is a multiple of 32 frames... Oh, this is another room that is really tight with movement. I failed the manipulation the first time, so I had to exit and re-enter. Yeah, this room without Vanish is very tough. You cannot win a battle against these knights. They're just too powerful. Good manipulations there. Took the risk there. That's another room with invisible enemies. Sometimes if you just hold up, if the enemies move early and move directly in your way, you'll get into a battle with them. But in most cases, you won't. I think in the RPG Limit Break run in 2019, I think I tried that and did get into an encounter. Let me see, what was I talking about? It's probably Black Tank stuff. Oh, right, the blocking. So Black Tank's ram attack is 96 frames, which is a multiple of 32. And what that means is that if you block the first attack, you're guaranteed to block all subsequent ramming attacks, which is a pretty neat feature. There are a few attacks like that in this game, but that's the one that pops up in speedruns pretty often. Right, so I'll quickly finish up what I was talking about with shields. Well, we've got some downtime here. I mentioned before Shield 5 has no special properties, just has really great stats. All of the other shields do give hidden resistances to something. So Shield 1 gives you immunity to knockback, which is pretty cool, but Shield 1's stats are just like so prohibitively low that you just never want to use it. Shield 2 gives immunity to rust or corrosion or poison, whatever you want to call it. So I mentioned at the very beginning of the run when I was talking about cleans, how they remove rust, I mentioned that I'm not going to have use for them. And that's because every enemy that can inflict rust on us was at the beginning of the game when we had Shield 2 equipped. Like, Metacrab has an attack that can rust you, which is pretty awful. Oh man, do I actually make it past? Alright. Good use. Good use. Man, this run has had some awful enemy movements. Well, at least I didn't get into a battle after investing so much there. Anyways, yeah, Shield 2, immunity to rust. It's super good property. Shield 3 gives immunity to confusion, which is pretty neat. It would be useful against Bug 2, but we have other ways to deal with him, which you'll see. And Shield 4, I'll talk about in more depth later, probably, but Shield 4 gives resistance to elemental attacks, but it's bugged, and it's bugged in two ways. First is that there's another status effect we haven't seen yet, but we will soon, called Disable. And when Disable is applied, your robot blinks red after the attack connects. But that red blink is also applied on all elemental attacks. So if you're hit with a snowball or a laser or something, your robot will glow red for a second or half a second after being hit. So the game internally can't actually distinguish between elemental attacks and disable attacks. It's just that elemental has a status effect duration of 0. So this also means that the elemental resistance from Shield 4 applies to any attack that successfully applies Disable. And there are a few of those that do a lot of damage, so Shield 4 can be used against those. But the most important bug with Shield 4 is that it is intended to reduce the damage by 50%, but instead of grabbing the attack power and reducing that by 50%, it grabs the wrong address. And it grabs what was being used as like a loop counter, and that counter is always going to be like 16 or 18. It's going to be in the high teens in all cases. So instead of grabbing an attack power of, say, let's see, what's Gatto's final attack here? The final boss's fireball attack, which has an attack power of 170. Instead of grabbing that value, it's grabbing 18, and then having that, and then applying defense. So, the end result is that every elemental attack, and every attack that successfully applies Disable status while you have Shield 4, is guaranteed to do no more than 2 damage. Which is ridiculous. Shield 4's stats in general are not great. It gives the same evasion boost as Shield 3, and only 4 more defense than Shield 3. But is much more expensive to create. So I used to think that was just the worst item in the game, but the hidden properties make it very interesting. So that covers shields. What we're seeing here is not actually required. This is a side quest that we just did. So we were sent into the past. Oh, I forgot to get the jewel! Okay, that is not supposed to happen. Or rather, that is supposed to happen if you walk up to the capsule and open it, but you're not supposed to open up that capsule in the speedrun. The jewel is the side quest item. So what's happening here is there's a feud between this dude and this woman, his neighbor, because he thinks that he stole her jewels. And we're in past Rococo right now, and this feud still exists in the present. Like, that guy's still mad at the other family for stealing his jewels, and those two people don't get along. And, like, their children are in love and want to get married, but they can't, and it's forbidden because their family's thieves and all that. We can end the feud here, and they'll be happy. Instead, we just accidentally stole the jewels and we left. But you have to initiate that side quest to get access to that back room, and the back room has 3,000 gold, which is what we would collect if we didn't get the drop from Papa Mecca. It has a scrap 3 and a scrap 9. And it just so happens that scrap 3 and scrap 9 combined together make boots 5, which are the tank boots, the tank treads, which is arguably the best weapon in the game, or sorry, the best piece of equipment in the game. So we do that entire minute-and-a-half long side quest just to get boots 5 for this area, because boots 5 are that impactful. The rest of this past section is just like jumping around between people who are mistaking me for Rask. So we were sent back in time far enough rather, to be in Rask's time. And this is where we meet Rask and the other people from Planet Choco. This is Cookie and Gatto. Napoleon here, who we already met in the future. Yeah, they keep mistaking us for Rask, and then Rask has to send us on, a mission to go talk to one of them, or go collect something from a cave, and this continues until the end of this flashback section. This section I also didn't like for a long time, because it has a bunch of plot elements that are really annoying, and sometimes the translation gives you misleading clues. So if I'm just, like, zoned out doing runs and doing all of this plot stuff, it's really easy for me to lose track and go to the wrong place and lose like 5 minutes. So conveniently, there's an R&D room on the spaceship, just a few tiles away from the path that we have to take for the plot. So after getting the ingredients for Boots 5, we just make the Boots 5 right here. In previous versions of this route, well, not this route, but previous versions of the Robotrek route, instead of making Shield 5 before Blackmore, you would make Boots 5. So instead I'm kind of switching things around, and then you would make Shield 5 here. You would still do the mouse side quest, and instead of grabbing Shield 3 and instead of grabbing Scrap 3 and Scrap 9 from that mouse room, you would just grab Scrap 9 and use that to make Shield 5. So I'm kind of just switching the order of when we make Boots 5 and when we make Shield 5, because with this route it works out in our favor to do it that way. It lets us get back attacks on Blackmore. It lets us use Boots 4 for longer. If you take the Boots 5 route, then you don't have the Scrap 3 to make Boots 4, which means that your Bug 1 fight is slower because it takes longer to close the gap there. The only way to close the gap faster is to build Turbo Pack, which requires levels, which requires time. So really making like one minor change changes the way that the entire route for the entire game pans out. And it's pretty convenient that all of this ends up working in a way that is individually still more efficient. Alright, let's see. What else is going on here? So again, previously, with previous routes, you can spend money in the tool shop to open it up. The tool shop owner is, I don't know if he's in debt or what the issue is, but he needs 5,000 gold to open up his shop. And if you open it up, then he'll sell you all the things that are in the normal tool shop, except at half cost. So the previous route would spend money here. You can open up the tool shop and stock up on repairs at this point, because the DeRose fight with the previous route that used Axe was very, very dangerous. That DeRose fight was... it took a minimum of 23 damaging rounds, but you have a low chance of dodge. so the fight ended up being around 30 rounds normally. Alright, you triggered both gators, but somehow avoided damage, or avoided battle. Yeah, so DeRose, you normally not have enough repairs with the old route. So you have to open up the tool shop and buy repairs there. But since we have a very, very, very easy DeRose fight with this route, we can just save our money and buy repairs in the present. So this is another fun thing. Puddles and narrow corridors like this one tile gap I'm walking through right now, those slow you down if you're a human. But if you have Vanish equipped or you're a mouse, they don't slow you down. And I didn't actually know that about the mouse. I thought I would just lose a whole bunch of time here from not having Vanish. But when I was testing things, I realized that mouse runs quicker on water and has no loss of speed through narrow corridors, which is fantastic. So we have an excuse to use the mouse besides just liking the mouse sprite more. And the mouse also triggers this cutscene. Vanish will work here too, but you just have to be something that isn't a human for this hacker to push the switch on the wall and let you through. So these maps are maps that I previously really hated, but they're actually very interesting to play through without Vanish, because there are some interesting mechanics at work. There are some really good uses of smoke that will like stop all of the clowns in the entire map from being in your way. You get to use the mouse, you get to abuse the mouse speed on water and on narrow corridors. The downside is that you can't skip this encounter. So if you have Vanish for certain animation frames from those clowns, you can press a direction to stand up and like a few frames later press the inventory button and you can open up the inventory. I forgot that this happened. So that... I got stopped by, I think, the siren guy. I don't think it was the... I don't think the big fan with the claws can do that. No, he can't. Wow. Yeah, so the siren commander actually stopped me. And the big fans have a chance to block and are resistant to elemental, so to kill them I have to use the run command. But stop prevents me from using the run command. The most efficient way to handle that is to escape, but I couldn't escape because I'm a mouse, and when you're a mouse you can't use items. So that was a really unfortunate series of events. This run has, it's really feast or famine with its luck. It's either really great luck or just unbelievably poor. So the battle that triggered that, when you fall down the hole, you're in the prone animation, and you can't open the inventory unless you're standing. So you have to like press a direction to start walking, and then open the inventory, and then you can equip Vanish. But it's really tight and often doesn't work anyways. So I'm really glad that I don't even have the option to try it, because that skip sucked. Okay, so after repairing Napoleon, there's another really interesting thing. I'm gonna transform into a mouse before leaving this screen, because Napoleon's walk speed over slow terrain is actually dependent on the player's status when he enters the screen. So if I enter the screen as a mouse, Napoleon gets mouse move speed over slow terrain, and if you enter Vanished, he gets Vanish move speed. If I enter as a human, when I walk through that narrow corridor, Napoleon is actually going to slow down, which makes him walk farther to trigger this cutscene. And the same general principle is going to be true in the next screen because it has water. But before that, there's another exploit you can do with Napoleon, and you can force the clown to interact with the Napoleon sprite, and you can trick it into thinking that it bumped into something by keeping Napoleon there as the clown walks into him, and then moving him out of the clown sprite. Otherwise, that clown just walks straight down the middle and triggers an unavoidable encounter. So by forcing him to bump into Napoleon, it forces him to change planes, and it gives us a free alley to run past him. There's so much cool tech in this area, and I really love it. So we have to collect Napoleon well, collect is a pretty harsh word, but we have to take Napoleon through this cave. And we have to collect the light, even though we're not going to use it, and we have to collect the drill. But the drill we actually do need, because we have to drill through some walls. But after we get to this point, Napoleon runs on ahead, and we are left alone. So, we've got just a few more rooms. There's another room with invisible dudes, and I'm going to equip glasses just for that one room to make sure that I don't get into a battle. But after that, we're going to fight DeRose, and this fight was historically the most difficult in the game, and I still think is the most difficult for a casual playthrough. Her stats are just far beyond anything else. She has 87.5% run resistance, so the run command is completely useless unless you crit. She doesn't have a weakness. I didn't mention weaknesses because they mostly don't come into play, but some bosses have weaknesses to certain weapon classes or specific weapons, and if hit by those, then they take 50% more damage. So for some bosses that are really strongly resistant to the run command, like Papa Mecca or Bug 2, you could potentially use a weakness and get better DPS, but in this case you can't. She has a lot of speed, she has a lot of guard, and a lot of health. So she's really tough to deal with. And previously you would, with the X3 route, you wouldn't go for RRR. You wouldn't use the run command and hope for crits, because your crit rate is only 1 in 16. So you would just do normal hits and pray that you would kill her before she kills you. And it's either very, very slow, or you get back attacks by using Turbo Pack and make yourself extremely vulnerable. But with this setup, with Punch 3, Shield 5, Boots 5, Shield Pack, DeRose has a 1% chance to hit with any of her normal attacks. The Head Smash attack there has a 12.5% chance to crit, which would ignore speed and kill us. So if she uses that and we don't block, we have a 1 in 8 chance of dying. And every time we attack, we have a 25% chance of critting. Now watch this luck. This is pretty sick. We've done 3 turns so far. Okay, there's turn 4. There's 1 crit. Again, she has 2,000 health, so we need 3 crits. There's 2. 2 for 5. There's 3 for 6. So we've done about 1,950 damage, so we're just going to do normal attacks now. And normal attack kills. So we got 3 crits out of 7 turns with a 25% chance. That fight is about 2 minutes faster than average. But with this setup, it's pretty reasonable to expect a deathless fight. With really bad luck, you'll get 1 death, but that fight is completely free with this setup, and it's really great. It's a breath of fresh air. There is one difference that I didn't think of until this run was finished, but I did include it in my slapstick world record, the Japanese version record. Instead of taking 99 power, 99 speed, and 31 charge, I adjusted my stats to 93 power and 37 charge. So I took 6 points out of power and put them into charge. The charge stat in this game is very strange, and I would recommend, if you're curious, to check out the page on my website for battle mechanics, because I mention it in detail there and include a chart that is a pretty handy reference. So charge on paper increases the speed at which your fuel fills up after doing an attack. So it increases the speed of the ATB meter. But it doesn't really work in the way that you would expect. So, alright, so I'll try and summarize this as quickly as I can. So with a basic attack, a basic melee attack like Sword, that uses 5 units of fuel. For each point in charge that you put in, it increases the fill rate of the last unit by 8 frames. So if you use a sword attack and you have 3 points in charge, it increases the total rate, the total time it takes to fill by 24 frames. 8 frames for each of the last 3. If you have 5 points in charge, it increases the fill rate by 40 frames. 8 frames for each of those. But it's on like a 24-point cycle. So if you have 23 points in charge and you use Sword 1, it still only increases your charge rate by 40 frames. And then at 24 frames, at 24 points, it resets. So then, you know, at 25 points in charge, you'd get a benefit up through 29 points in charge. And then from 30 to 47 points, you wouldn't get any benefit. So the benefit that you get out of charge is dependent on what attacks you're planning on using and how much fuel you plan on expending. If you're just going to walk in battle and use a melee weapon, then it doesn't make sense to put points in charge beyond 5 until you're willing to put up to 24 points into charge. And again, there's a graph and more details on the website for specifics. But what it means in this context is that 37 points into charge is actually the maximum value that you can get for using a triple melee run command. That'll increase the speed for every pixel, every unit of fuel by 17 frames each. So the difference between 31 points in charge and 37 points in charge is 48 total frames of fill speed, which doesn't seem like much. It's 4/5 of a second. But it prevents her from doing 2 attacks per turn for certain spacings and for certain attacks. So the short form is taking 93 points in power and 37 points in charge guarantees that she will never get more than 1 attack off per round. And even though we need 3 crits and then 3 normal attacks as opposed to 3 crits and 1 normal attack to kill her, we need 2 extra damaging turns. It actually means she's going to take less actions against us because she's getting fewer double turns. So it ends up being more efficient to use that stat build. But again, it's just something that doesn't really seem like it would. So that is, I think, the only change that I made between this run and the slapstick run. Okay, well, that explanation out of the way, we're back in the present. Rose was the hacker ruler. We defeated her. We went back to the spaceship, and then surprise, Gatto was there. He's really the hacker ruler now. And the Tetron malfunctioned, and it sent us back into the present. We are now level 20. In fact, I think we're 22 or something. Might even be 23. No, we're 22. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that we're beyond level 20. And level 20 is what you need to read the book on Vanish. So, we read Vanish, we built 2 Vanishes, and we also read Turbo Pack? Did we? Does this run still use Turbo Pack? I think that might have been a mistake. I think the final version of this route doesn't get Turbo Pack at all. I know I don't use it on Bug 2. I'm really curious if I use it on Gatto 1. I don't think I should. Well, we're gonna find out. But Vanish is the important thing. Vanish is the item that I mentioned before that prevents enemies from triggering encounters with you. So from now on, we don't have to worry about manipulating enemies. We're not going to be using any smoke bombs. We're just going to be using Vanish and running past stuff. And going through a substantial amount of plot. So Tira and this guy, I don't know if his actual name is Valet. I guess. They're from Choco, the same planet that Rask is from, and Cookie and Gatto. So they need our help because reasons. And they gave us a spaceship to go fly to Choco and get the scoop. So when I mentioned that it really doesn't matter what my level is now that I'm 20, that's more true than it sounds. I get no additional benefit from any points, any stat points. My power is maxed and my speed is maxed, and my charge is 49. So I I don't want to talk too much about the charge stat because it's super wonky, and again, just reading the description on the website is probably enough, but there's one additional detail with charge that's really awkward. So, when you use an attack and the fuel gauge is filling, the gauge will fill faster if you press the B button, and this is something that I knew about way back, even in 2009. So if you press the B button, the charge fills up 8 frames quicker, and then the B button goes on cooldown for 8 frames. So if you press the button, if you press the B button essentially 6 times per second, then you're getting maximum value out of it, and you're really, really cranking up the fill speed. And that's why, at 0 charge, I was still really effective in combat until recently. The issue is that beyond 49 points in charge, B pressing is disabled. So again, there's a really good chart on my website that adequately illustrates this. But putting 49 points in charge and optimally pressing the B button gives you a fill rate that's equal to 92 or 93 points in charge. So until you're a high enough level to actually reach near max charge, it's worth not putting any more points into charge and just stopping at 49. And since our terminal level in this run is 24, which would give us enough for 70 charge, we're just not going to do it. We're just going to stay at 49. It's a super bizarre thing. And for anybody who's looking, again, to play this casually or to speedrun this and is having trouble internalizing what 6 hits per second is, I like to internalize the Washington Post march, but you can really just pick, your favorite march, a march of your choosing, because pretty much every march is 120 beats per minute, so 2 beats per second, and then you just subdivide triplets on that. And it's really convenient to use the Washington Post march because there are triplets at the very beginning of that song. So, yeah, just imagine for 3.5 hours the Washington Post march playing in the back of your head. Well, anyways, we're in outer space now. We are on Choco. They gave us a grand tour. We toured their labs. And we found Gatto, who is there and has no memory of what he's done. And the moment we leave the lab, he captures Tira and takes her to his fortress. So now we gotta figure out what to do about this. And I don't remember if it was this visit or the revisit of this place. No, it was this visit. Yeah, we gave them the Tetron and we gave them Scrap A, which is the scraps of Napoleon. Yeah, so they were researching those in the lab, and Gatto took Tira and the Tetron with him and fled. So we have to go recover Tira and the Tetron. This cutscene is infuriating because it is so long and there's nothing that you can do to speed it up. And it's just an utterly pointless cutscene from the perspective of plot as well. Because they have a bunch of scientists here and then me, who's the only one who's experienced in combat, and very experienced in combat. And we have to go infiltrate this base and fight stuff. And we're not even allowed to volunteer. We have to draw straws. And there are 5 of us at the table and 4 red straws. So it's just pointless from all regards, really. Anyways, we're ready to go. We're going out to the Gatto's fortress. All you have to do here is talk to the bottom left guy and the upper right scientist, and then the pilot. He tells you that you can't use the bathroom and warp, and then we're attacked. I'm really not entirely sure how we all survive this. Though I guess I'm not really sure that the others do survive this. I don't know if we see them again. Once again, our good friend Kotetsu is here. This section is so packed with cutscenes. This was another thing that I just really did not enjoy about running this game. Like, a lot of the dungeons, it sucks to deal with the enemy movements, and it sucks to constantly get screwed by bad luck. But at least you're interacting with the game. But there are so many of these sections that are just like a ton of backtracking or mashing A through cutscenes. And this entire final section is like 70% cutscenes and like 25% boss fight, 5% just walking through a few empty rooms. It's pretty awful. I used to like this section a lot when I was first running this game, but my preferences have shifted around as I've played more and more. And somehow Mint is in outer space, not only in outer space, but aboard Kotetsu's ship. Not really sure how she got there, but again, this is a game that doesn't take itself seriously, so I have no reason to take it seriously either. We find out, though, that Kotetsu is some kind of space pirate smuggler guy. So he's allowed into the fortress just fine, because he's bringing some of these guards the good stuff. So this fortress, if you know where you're going, is actually very, very short. But on my first playthrough when I was younger, I got lost here for infinity. Like, I never finished the playthrough. I made it to this place, and I got so incredibly lost. I just, like, was walking between the same rooms, killing stuff. I reached, like, level 65 or something just from killing the same enemies over and over again. This place is pretty confusing, and it's very easy to get lost because there's a lot of one-way doors, and backtracking is not simple. In fact, in one of my early runs, I don't remember if it was... Oh, it was the first run I submitted to SDA, the 347 that I got back in 2012. Yeah, back in 2012. I accidentally walked through one of the one-way doors in this area, and it cost me, like, 6 minutes, I think? Because I ended up having to walk through the entire dungeon again to get back where I was. And I wasn't sure if there was a shortcut, so for, like... If I had just walked through the entire dungeon, it would have only been, like, a 2 or 3 minute loss. But I kept trying to find a shortcut, and I kept getting stuck in these other one-way doors. I should have just cut my losses and run through the whole place. But, yeah, there are only a few things that you need to do here. You immediately go... So, what makes these doors one way is that they're blocked by a password. There are 3 different colored doors. Red, yellow, and blue. And you get the passwords for those in that order. So you can run immediately and get the red password, and go through this way. And I think from this point it's pretty straightforward. One thing that's not straightforward, though, when you get the red password there, you gain control immediately, and you can actually leave the room before Kotetsu does. And if you do, the game doesn't actually remember that you got the red password, and you have to go back and watch the cutscene again. It's really annoying. It's also really annoying because that's, like, the only cutscene in the game that you actually get control during. like for pretty much every other cutscene, including this one that we're coming up to now, you have to wait for the NPC to walk all the way out of the room before you're able to move. So it's peculiar that you get control early in that one and that it doesn't work. But yeah, once you get the red password and you go through the red door, it's pretty straightforward. Pretty linear up to this point. You find Tira. You have to watch her walk all the way out of the room. And then follow her. And surprise! It's Gatto. This dungeon has a few extra invisible enemies. So in addition to the berets and the maskers that we've seen all throughout the game, this also has ninjas, and ninjas are arguably even more dangerous. But instead of equipping the glasses and trying to dodge them, we are just going to equip Vanish and run past them. But if you see this shadow stop moving, it's because I bumped an invisible enemy. I normally bonk one in this spot here. Nope, didn't get stopped at all. Nice. And that's where we also get the shield for, which is convenient, because really the only fight that we're going to be using shield for is the final battle. So getting it in the final dungeon, just like with a 6-second detour or something, is great. You can make a shield 4 with the Invention machine. If you combine scrap 9 with scrap 7, you can make one. But it's pretty cost inefficient. And Shield 4, like, it has really great properties, but when you're not going to be fighting random encounters, it's really only useful for 1 or 2 boss fights. Once again, it's like a throwback to the Clocktower. Mint is being assaulted by mice. They're blocking the mouse hole. Or she's blocking the mouse hole, so we just tell her, she gets out of the way, and we're able to go. In the basement here, this is where we were sent by Gatto. We just had to activate the elevator, restore power to the elevator. Follow Mint in, and then Mint is gone. And this is where things get hairy, because you have to pick the right floor. But just going to floor 3 and then choosing the right doors will get you where you gotta go. But yeah, at this point, like once you've activated that elevator, the entire dungeon is opened up to you, and you can get yourself lost in a real hurry. It's another familiar face. So Blackmore self-destructed in the air fortress, but he's completely fine still. But as a result of his betrayal, he was sentenced to be the eternal janitor. I like this bathroom because it has this room in the upper left that's just completely empty. I like to think that that's Blackmore's office, now that he's stuck to the bathroom for the rest of eternity. But obviously he doesn't want to be there, so he makes a deal with us. If we can deactivate the no-run program, which when I was playing through when I was a kid, I thought the no-run program was something that, like, prevented us from using the run command, but it's literally he can't run, he can't leave. But yeah, if we go disable the no-run program, then he'll give us the key to release Tira. And naturally, just like when we saved our father's memory, if we have to disable a program, we just go into the computer and kill it. So we see our good friend Bug again. So this fight is really irritating. He's like D-Rose in that he has 87.5% resistance to the run command. And he has 2,400 health, so he has 400 more health than D-Rose. So the only efficient way to do damage with Punch is by using RRR and praying for a crit. The issue... There are a lot of issues, really, but one is what you're seeing right now. This is Confusion. This happened once before in the run, in the Mamarana boss fight. Confusion... Well, status effects in general can be applied even if the attack misses. His confusion attack, I think, has a 25% chance to hit. Yep, 25% chance to hit. I think in this fight, I get confused for something like 18 total turns. I think I got confused 7 times for 18 turns, something like that. And we need 4 critical hits. So, in the time that we spent confused walking around, we lost so much time that I think the fight with, like, my gold split, the perfect fight, was over by now. I think compared to my splits, this fight was like 3.5 minutes slow. I think we got 1 crit here out of 5. I don't remember if this is the one that got 4 out of 8. That's 2 out of 6. It might be. I've done a lot of runs and I've had a lot of really bad Bug 2 fights. I've had 3 fights that have won in 8 turns. Got 4 crits in 8 turns. But I also had one that took like 33 rounds, I think? Or 36 rounds to get my 4 crits. And I don't remember if this is one that got the super bad confusion luck plus a 4 out of 8. Or if this is one that got super bad confusion luck and super bad crit luck. I think I need 2 more crits. Well, I know I need 2 more crits, but I think we're already at 6 turns. Okay, so this is just like average crit luck. Average crit luck and really, really worst possible confusion. So to put into perspective how unlucky this confusion is, again, Bug has 2 attacks and only the Hockey Puck launcher can confuse. Only that attack can confuse. And the confusion rate is equal to my crit rate. It's 25%. So not only does he have to choose the right attack, but he has to roll the 25% successfully. And in this fight, he landed 7 successful confuses. It is incredibly rare. I would say the average number of confusions per fight is 1. And like my second worst fight has only gotten confused twice. This is so far beyond the worst confusion luck that I've ever seen. It's laughable. This is also actually super bad crit luck. I think I'm like 2 for 13 or something right now. I think I wrote it down somewhere. I would have to double check. But this fight's over with 1 more crit. It's a race. It's a race to see who can get the 25% roll. Yikes. This is such an awful fight. I remember it was bad, but I guess I forgot just how truly terrible this was. Oh, so another point. The reason I haven't died yet is because this boss actually has a 0% chance to hit me. The worst that he can do is exactly what he's doing right now, which is constantly confuse me and waste my turns. I think this crit luck is around 4 for 20. I think, yeah, it was rough. So yeah, hit rate and dodge rate is based on the speed differential between attacker and target. If your speeds are equal, you're both guaranteed 100% hit rate, and then it diminishes as the target gets faster. If the speed differential is 100 points or greater, you're guaranteed to dodge. Every attack is guaranteed to miss. So Bug has 70? Yeah, Bug 2 has 70 speed. And we have 179 speed with this build. 99 from from points, from stat points, and then 32 from boots 5 and shield 5, and 16 from shield pack. Oh, this is another cute innovation. So while we do have vanish and we're never at risk of getting into an encounter, vanish does require 2 menus, one to equip and one to unequip. You have to unequip it because it is a consumable technically. Vanish is on a timer, and when the timer expires, the item is consumed. But the timer isn't preserved after you unequip it. So you equip Vanish and you use it for a while, and then you unequip it, and the game is totally fine with that. So if there are a few rooms that you can get through without equipping Vanish, like after Bug, that room with the Knights and the room with the Gigarian and Knight just before Blackmoor, and then again after leaving Blackmoor's office/bathroom, it's better to run through without Vanish. And it's not faster by much. I think it's like 3 seconds faster, but still, it's worth it. Well, we held up our end of the bargain. Now we have the red password and the yellow password. We got the key to save Tira. We saved her. She didn't know that she was kidnapped. She didn't know that Gatto was a bad guy. So she just figured it out now. So I'm a hostage? That's awful. She pushes him outside into outer space. There's some really great dialogue here. Outside was outer space. Gatto is okay. So, yeah, we saved her, and we're gonna go bring her back home. So that's the first half of the mission complete. Tira is saved. Gatto is maybe or maybe not neutralized, but he still has the Tetron, so we've got to figure out what to do about that. And fortunately, the lead scientist here, who I guess survived. Yeah, I guess he did survive the the ambush by Kotetsu. Yeah, the lead scientist was able to use Scrap A, Napoleon's scrap, and get some inside information on the hacker fortress and figure out how to destroy it. So up to this point, this run is actually pretty okay overall. The Papa Mecca boss fight was good. I think that was 3 hits. Big Eye was only 2 hits, which is great. Black Tank, I didn't get any crits, only died once. D-Rose was only 7 rounds, which is the fastest I've ever done. Bug 2 was the worst I've ever seen, and Mamorana was pretty bad. And then, you know, through the dungeons themselves, I had some really great screens where the enemies behaved and I ran right by. And then I had some really awful screens where the enemies wouldn't budge. I had sections where the encounter luck was terrible and gave me capsules that were blocking the use of RXR. I had a lot of single encounters when I was looking for certain levels. And then in other sections, I had triple encounters when I was looking for levels. So I think overall this is a pretty average run, but instead of being like slightly above average and slightly below average in certain areas, it's like absolute best and absolute worst. Like, one of the reasons I really like this run is that it is the most Robotrek speedrun of Robotrek that you can find. There's just no middle ground. It really showcases the best and worst of running this game. It shows what really good luck can do to bosses, and it shows you just exactly how mean this game can be. And I couldn't ask for a more representative run. Even though this can be improved pretty easily by several minutes, by someone who's, like, far more patient than me, or even slightly more patient than me. But I don't have the mindset to run RPGs. The randomness gets to me. And the length of the run gets to me too. I don't like having to ration my water because there's no time for bathroom breaks. It's a real pain. Alright, well, time for the final visit here. There's not much left to do, only a few rooms, really, and a bunch of cutscenes. We brought Tira back, they reverse engineered Napoleon's scraps, and found a weakness for the reactors here. So he developed some jars, red, yellow, and blue jars. Could be jam, could be condiments, mustard, ketchup, and really old relish. Whatever it is, if we place the jars on the right reactors. Don't go down in this room. That's a one-way door that requires you to play through the entire dungeon again. That's the bad time door that I took in my 347 7 years ago. But yeah, if we place these jars on the reactors in the right order, then the whole base will explode, and that is the result that we want. In the meantime, we've got to rescue Mint and Kotetsu. They found themselves jailed somehow. Good guy Blackmore. Like moths to a flame, that's what you are. So instead of just telling us that he's a good guy now, and he's had enough of being the eternal janitor and just wants to get the ruler in trouble, he puts on this show like he's gonna turn us into the ruler, but not really sure that was necessary. Blackmore does have one of my favorite lines in the game, though. I'm going. Going where? The wind has no destination. Mic drop. Slow walk away. Alright, so we have the blue password. There's only, like, a few screens left that really matter. This next screen is similar to Volcano Base in that there are these security lasers that are in our way that are on a timer from when you open the, or when you enter the screen. And there's a manipulation that Liquid found. Again, he's one of the Japanese runners. He had the record prior to my 3:14:20. So there are some of these movement buffers that you can do here to stall a certain amount of time and force these enemies to get out of your way. And the goal for this is to manipulate the entire room, but my main goal is to make it past this laser without tripping the barriers. Because these lasers, instead of forcing extra encounters or forcing extra enemies that chase you, they put up just these solid barricades that you have to wait for. So I took a few extra steps here that were not intended on the first wave, on the first trip down there. So I couldn't use my buffer strats anymore. I lost track of them. But that one doesn't really matter too much. You lose like 6 seconds from having to wait for this barrier, something like that. And then you can run through. So I got the halfie. I got half of the room manipulated, and I got the important half. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. I think in my slapstick PB, I got the full manipulation. I think. But it's very, very difficult to do. The manipulation, even doing the half manipulation that I got there, as opposed to like using Vanish, swapping between Vanish and like Smoke Bomb and Chameleon Goggles, whatever your other option was, even that saves about 20 seconds. So it's a really important trick, probably the most important map navigation in the entire run. The timing here is also really tight. You want to delay equipping this Vanish for as long as you can, so that you make it past all of the Gagarians in this room before Vanish expires. And it's pretty tight. You only have like a few tiles of wiggle room. But with the reactors being destroyed, there was a barricade in the 4th floor here that was previously active. Bonked an invisible enemy there. This one here and this door. Destroying the reactors takes away that barrier. And at this point there's only like 2 more screens with enemies, and I still have a backup Vanish. So I just let this one expire. It saves me 1 menu. And this is the point of no return. So if you're playing casually, or I mean even in a speedrun, if you don't have the resources necessary to beat the last 2 bosses, then your save file is forfeit. Once you get thrown across this bridge, that's it. You can't go back. But we're sitting pretty. My route... Again, I'm really curious to see what setup I use for Gatto 1. Just in case I do use Turbo Pack, I would recommend watching the fight in the RPG Limit Break 2019 run, because that uses Shield Pack and really illustrates the power of that strategy. It's pretty amazing. So I'm hoping that I just bought the Turbo Pack in error here. But we have 2 more bosses, and the final boss is a real pain, but Gatto 1 is just awful. It's a really, really awful fight. Alright, I didn't menu, so we're sticking with Shield Pack. Okay, so with Shield Pack here, you have a few options, first of all. You can use Turbo Pack, which will guarantee that you're able to hit Gatto on every turn. Or you can use Shield Pack and make it so that he basically won't kill you. The soldiers have a 0% chance to hit me now, and Gatto has a 4% chance to hit me, but I can still block. The trade-off is that you walk really slow, so chasing Gatto across the screen is slow. But not, like, the risk of death is so much lower that it ends up being better. And there's a pseudo-manipulation that you do here, too. So here, I can't reach Gatto, so I take 1 turn to defend. And that guarantees that I get a back attack on the next turn, because the left side soldier swapped places with the left-facing Gatto. And I'm going to do it again here. So I'm guaranteed a back attack here, again. So the DPS, even though you're taking more turns, you're wasting a turn with defending, the DPS is better because you're getting more back attacks. And the other good thing is there's less of a chance that you'll be disabled. And this crit luck is also super gross in this fight in particular. So when soldiers shoot you, they have a 50% chance of disabling the run command. So we can watch this guy shoot me. You see how he how I glowed red briefly after that attack hit? You can see it again here. I didn't glow that time, so disable wasn't applied. When you glow red, you can't use the run command for that turn. So in these intermediate rounds, when I'm going to the center of the screen and defending, that's essentially wiping the disable effect from the previous turn. And it's guaranteeing that the soldier only gets 1 chance to apply disable the second time, instead of getting 2 rounds. So he only gets 1 turn, he didn't apply disable, we're free to hit Gatto with triple R. So that fight was disgusting. I got 4 crits, 3 of them were with RRR, and 1 of those was a back attack. I think he has 2,800 health. Yeah, he has 2,800 health, and just from critical hits, I did 2,300 damage. So that fight was monstrous, and Shield Pack is absolutely the way to go. Again, it's one of those things like the Big Eye fight, where it's counterintuitive. Like, it doesn't seem like taking more turns to fight the boss would end up being faster in the end, but because we're manipulating back attacks and because we're giving the enemies less chance to disable us, it ends up being faster, and it ends up being consistently faster. That fight with Turbo Pack has cost me, like, upwards of 8 repairs and upwards of 3.5 minutes with bad luck. So, yeah, that strategy is very, very good. And that's one of the main reasons that this run's time is so strong. So Gatto 1 is dead. All that's left is the second form, which is a very long fight. You expect this fight to be generally 7 minutes. But I've had it take like 13 before. I've literally lost 6 minutes on this fight compared to bad splits. This fight can be exceptionally cruel. So I did swap equipment, and I did, after the level up from Gatto 1, I did put points into energy. And again, like I mentioned before, Shield 4 has that hidden property of elemental damage reduction, and I'm going to be using that here. And the damage reduction is pointless if you don't have health. So I now have 23 energy. Actually, I think I was level 25 in this run. I might have 33 energy. But either way, I have some amount of energy to allow me to survive a hit from his fireball or his snowball attack. So I'm just gonna pull up the numbers here for comparison. And again, I'm using the calculator that is now available. If anybody wants to play along and punch numbers in. So I'm using Shield 4, Shield Pack, Boots 5, and Punch 3, level 9. Gatto has 5,200 health. We still do like 170 or something damage. What do we do? Looks like we do 110 damage with RRR. That doesn't crit. But a critical hit does 637 or something. So we don't need a certain number of critical hits to win, but we certainly appreciate them. Generally using Punch 3, you expect to get 4 or 5 crits. I think this fight got 6. I think this might have been a 22-round fight. I think 20 is the shortest fight that you can get with 6 crits. Anyways, with this setup, Gatto has a 25% chance to hit us. And on attacks that we can block, which I think is just limited to his ram attack, then he has a 19% chance to hit. And with Shield 5, he's at 13% chance to hit, with 9% chance to hit with the ram attack. So it's a 12 percentage point difference to use Shield 5 over Shield 4. But we are guaranteed to survive with Shield 4 when he uses Fireball or Snowball. So of his 5 possible actions, we're guaranteed to survive 2. This is pretty rough start. That's our 3rd death. Yeah, so when he uses bombs, or when he uses the commando attack, or when he uses the ram attack, we have a pretty good chance of dying. But when he uses that or the snowball, we're guaranteed to live. The odds are about equal, but I prefer using Shield 4 just because I generally get more snowballs and fireballs than other attacks when I fight him. But, I mean, I've had some fights where I never get any snowballs and only get like 1 or 2 fireballs. I've had fights where he uses the commando attack like 10 or 11 times in a row, which is awful. But I've also had fights where he lingers on Fireball and Snowball for 10 or 11 rounds in a row, too. This fight is a slugfest so far. I've gotten 4 crits, and he's killed me 4 times. So my damage right now is really great against him. He's beyond halfway dead. He's probably taken 3,000 damage out of his 5,200. But 4 deaths is also a lot. When I was testing this fight, before I was doing attempts, when I was testing, my average was 3 deaths with this setup. But I had attempts that were taking so many more deaths. I think my worst was 16. 16 deaths in one fight. We're up to 5 now. In attempts, I would say my average is probably 6 deaths. But I stand by this strat. If anybody wants to improve the run, though, opting to not use Shield 4 and using Shield 5 with this build is equally viable. But I like Shield 4. So this fight, it's kind of a toss-up between Punch 3 and Axe 3 as for which is better. I think Axe 3 every round will do 170, every non-crit round, and do like 850 with a crit. So the damage is higher, but your crit rate is again 1/4 the crit rate of Punch. So like really good luck with Axe 3 is going to be better than really bad luck with Punch 3, but on average I expect Punch to come out ahead. I think that's my sixth death. I think still 4 crits. Fireball is good. Fireball is our friend here. I think in the RPG Limit Break run, I had a 20-round fight as well, or a 22-round fight. My luck in that run was unbelievably good. That was a really cool run. Block is nice. I think that's my first block of this fight. Still 6 deaths. 4 crits. Seven deaths. Yeah, I think I'm thinking of the slapstick run that got a 22-round kill. I don't think it was this one. I think we're probably within 1 crit. But maybe not. So if there is anybody who is interested in speedrunning this game, this boss fight is infuriating. Because after playing through for like 3.25 hours, it doesn't really matter how good your run is, because Gatto 2 can do whatever he wants to. And like one of the time savings that I was considering when I was routing this was skipping the second repair trip. So after I come back from the past and buy vanishes and whatnot, I buy 10 extra repairs, and you really shouldn't need them. Gatto 1 with this setup should only do like 1 or 2 deaths at most, and Bug 2 cannot kill you. And this fight should really only take like 4 or 5 repairs. So instead of coming to the final area with like 17 or 16 or 17 repairs, you should be fine just coming here with like 8 to 10. But all it takes is one fight like this to completely change your mind on that matter. I think that's death number 8, maybe 9. We've gotten 5 crits. This should do it. Nope. Nope, I lied. Watching this fight is even worse than playing it. God. Alright, so that did get 6 crits. I wasn't counting the number of hits, but I think that was a pretty inefficient 6 crit kill. I think maximum value is a 20-round fight with 6 crits, and that was probably like a 25-round fight with 6 crits. And 9 deaths. Pretty costly. So a death in that fight is about 30 seconds. Like, worst case scenario, it's 30 seconds. Because you have to sit through 2 more attacks. The 1 attack for revive and the 1 attack for swap. And if both of them are time warp attacks, they're about 15 seconds each. So 9 deaths, about 4.5 minutes lost. And then you know, subtract some of that back, because some of his attacks were ram attacks, which are only like 4 seconds, so maybe 3.5 minutes lost from deaths. But on the other side, if you get a critical hit has the value of 6 rounds of attacking. So every critical hit saves 5 turns, which is 5 of his attacks. So again, each critical hit is saving you about 1.5 minutes. So the time can swing a hell of a lot in that fight, and it's pretty awful. but that's the way the game goes. Critical hits are just way too efficient. There's really no way to build this game for a speedrun that doesn't rely on crits. You just don't have crits and evasion. You don't have the points to invest into guard and energy. You just have to put points into power and speed and hope for the best. So yeah, that's the run. It's really been a pleasure to showcase this game so many different times over the course of the last decade. This is one of my favorite RPGs. I've been working on it here and there for 10 years. I've invested more time into investigating the mechanics in this game than I have for any other game that I've ever worked on. It was my first time ever disassembling code, and I'm super, super happy that I was able to actually make something out of it, that the disassembly was successful, and that it was valuable. It's been just, I mean, valuable is really the only word for it. It's been a really valuable experience. It's been really rewarding. I had a lot of fun routing this game, testing different ideas, and trying to time things out. It was a really fun process, and it was really great to see this game develop over the course of so many years. You know, like I mentioned about halfway through the run, if you change one minor detail, the entire run changes. Even something as simple as what you do with the first scrap 5 in the game. Whether you clean it to make shield 2, or whether you save it to make boots 4 when you get to Old House. It changes everything. It changes the way you fight the first boss, it changes what you do with scrap 3, it changes how you fight the bosses from then on. So it's been really interesting to see how this has changed, to see, you know, even minor things like what weapon we use and where to build a weapon. You know, if we're gonna take the axe route, do we level up to make axe in the Old House, or do we forego that inventor's friend and just make axe by combining hammer and swords? And we've gone through a lot of different iterations of this route over those years. So it's been quite a process, and it's been very enjoyable. Even though I didn't really particularly enjoy the attempts that I did on my quest to reclaim the record this year, it was still a really fun process overall. So I'm really grateful for all of you who have watched and supported me playing this game over the last 10 years. I appreciate the company in my stream. I appreciate the support, certainly during the RPG Limit Break runs. It was a real privilege to play this game there and showcase this to a wider audience. It's been really great to work with the other runners, Liquid and the Japanese community, and Jintatsu. I'm looking forward to see what they come up with. Looking forward to seeing where they take the crabless route in the future, because there are certainly some risks that I take with this route, with some equipment pathing that they might not want to buy into. But yeah, I've already rolled out a lot of my notes, and I plan to keep uploading things to my website and keep making short informational videos and guides as I have time. And hopefully before I lose interest or disappear or something, I'll be able to get all of that online. So some new faces can use all these resources and come up with something on their own. But I think I've personally accomplished as much as I planned to with this game. I've seen this run through from when it was closing in on 5 hours down to now where it's at 3:22 or 3:14 in the Japanese version. I completely disassembled the entire battle system. I've made tools for others to use. I've showcased it at live events. I've pretty much done everything that I've wanted to with this, and I don't particularly enjoy doing attempts, so it's unlikely that I'll return to speedrunning this. I expect that my records will be beaten by the next dedicated person to run this. It's not a real stretch to expect it to drop in the next few months even. But that's totally fine. I'm just excited to see where this game's gonna go, because it's a really cool game with really great mechanics, and it makes for a very interesting speedrun, I think. So, thank you very much again to everybody who's supported me and who's followed this game and encouraged this game to be at events. It's been really great. I'm really glad that other people have grown to appreciate this. I'm probably not going to run it anymore, but I'll certainly do some more challenge playthroughs, especially now that I have the tools to quickly test if they're going to be possible. So, it won't be the last time you see Robotrek from me, but I probably won't be doing any more runs. Like I mentioned before as well, I'm not going to be doing commentary for the Japanese run that I did of this. I will encode it and upload it to YouTube, but it's just going to be the game audio and game video. The route is identical between the two, it's just text differences and one extra cutscene in the Japanese version. And yeah, the only route change is the stat build for D-Rose that I mentioned, with 93 power and 37 charge instead of what I do here. So, I'm not going to bother recording commentary for that, but I'll make the video available in case anybody wants to review it. But that being said, I'll let you guys watch the end of the credits in peace. And I want to sincerely thank you again for all of the support over the years. It's meant a lot to me, and I'm really, really pleased with what we've accomplished with this game.